this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, no matter the influence, you know. And because at that time, for me, being in a church and reading the Bible, you know, always praying, it was one of my core values. You know, I would not look down on someone who was not going to church for whatever reason that they were. But as a whole human being, I knew that for me to be able to survive in life, I needed, you know, to be in a place of fellowship, in a place of continual fellowship, you know, with other people, receiving and expressing the love of God. So that has just been me. Even when I was studying, I was at the university. My friends at that time could attest that if there was anything, for me, church and prayer were at the center of my life. So that's how I basically have done life, and not to neglecting other things which were going around, you know, around me. I would read as much, I would listen to the news, I will watch TV and all that. And having said that, I realized that after the experience that I had, I found myself that it was like there was 5 years of my life that I was in a vacuum. In a place that when I walked to Heaven International Fellowship, it was at the end of 2015. My husband got invited to church, and then we visited this church. As we visited the church, one of the things that had attracted me at the time, it was, you know, the teaching, which was nothing but reference to the Bible that I had, that I would read for myself, because I was in the habit of reading a Bible for myself also. So we went, we visited the first day, we visited the second day, and the things, like I was aware of the things that there was also a new thing in the Christian space where there's prophetic churches and everything, and which I had nothing against, because it was some things that when you are watching them on TV, everybody is liking the vibe, you know, what you hear being said there. And so for me, I was saying at the time, I was able that I can separate that if I'm in a space, this is good for me, this is not good for me. So in terms of the decisions that I was making, I was a sound person. Whatever decision that I was doing, I was calculative of what I was doing. I was aware of my actions, that my actions shouldn't harm me, shouldn't harm the next person or in any way. Whatever that I would conduct myself as, because I knew that church was what has built me growing up. It was just nothing else except receiving the love of God. So we go to this church. When we go to the church, the teachings are going on. First thing that happened, when you are a visitor there, you don't just walk out without the prophet wanting to see you. And then after the church service, when he came and walked into the service, I looked at him and I analyzed him. He's a young South African guy, you know, he's speaking the word of God. Even when he's giving prophecies inside church, it wasn't, at the time when I was visiting, it wasn't something that was creating commotion or anything. It was, you know, with respect. Those were the values that I was seeing in him, which I was judging for myself and my family. So after the church service, we go and then we talk to him. Who are you? Where are you from? No, we are these people. We had a church which we were attending, but as a couple that had recently married, we were also looking for a place that could be our own church. You know, unlike the church where we were going, where when you are in that space, it's, you know, it is his former church, which was not my church, and there were a lot of other things where we thought, we just need to start afresh and walk, you know, this journey together in a space. And when we get there, he tells my husband that there's a call of God upon your life, which is things that he knew in any case. And in this environment, I'm starting out. God has called me out to raise other ministers with me. You know, he was talking all the right things. That church can't be all about me, it's about other people. I've started in a year's time. I have other people that I have groomed here that are sharing the pulpit with me. They are teaching. I have taught them doing what I do. And after that session, I remember saying to my husband, you know what, this person looks like a sound person. You find a young person, he's even a South African, he's not even wanting the pulpit space for himself, you know, he's inviting other people who have the call of God upon their lives so that they can come and be part of his growing church. That was our first impression. We leave church, we visit again. On our second visit, we had went to our former church, and then we went there. It was the 31st, which he calls it crossover service. So our church used to be for a few hours. And then we go, it was around, this one started I think around 10. So we were already back from church, but we honored a second invite because he has invited us back. Then in this, it was less than 30 people in the service. So we are in the service, just listening to his teaching for the new year and everything. You pray, you fast. And these are all things that I knew. There was nothing strange about, what he was saying at the time. And he even asked me and say, what do you want a child? What child you want? And then I answer out of, I want a boy child. We didn't have a child at the time as a couple. And then I said, I want a boy child. He said, no, I see you in 3 months' time. You'll come back and remember me. You'll have a child. And when he was saying that, it wasn't something new. It was also something that I knew because the church where we were coming from, it was information that was given to me. And during that year, I remember I had 2 miscarriages and I had consulted a doctor. So when I went to the doctor said, no, you shouldn't worry in any way. The fact that you are having miscarriages shows that you are not barren. You are going to have children. So at the back of my mind, even when I went to church, I wasn't desperate for anything except being in a worship place, So there was nothing in me that we ran there, we wanted prophecy, we went there, we wanted a child, it was just that word and then how he was interacting with us, which was fair enough. We then made a decision to say, let us just commit to this church. You look at the Merton environment, because it is in the rural part of Merton. The church was in a tent at the time. There were people already, and you look at the people, because that was another thing that I would check here. There was a balanced view of the congregants, meaning there were people that were learned, and then there were people that you could see that these are coming from disadvantaged background, and in that space you are seeing that as someone who knows God, or someone who can interact with others in a healthy way. You will even have an opportunity to uplift the life of someone at that time. Because I remember there was one couple that when we started attending church there, we identified them with my husband and said, this family, we can take them as our family. Whatever resources that we have, they were not working, they had 3 kids. We would be like, we can share what we have with them. So we started even that, and then we'll even tell him that we identified family X here in church, so it will be part of what we do for them, because you just see the hardships that they had. So that's how we started church. But one of the things that has opened me up for abuse, what I want to talk about today, is the financial abuse that I went through in his hands. And at that time, commissioners, when we went in that church space, I went as a person. You are here because he says we are all going to grow together here. If you see that there's no chair, bring a chair. If you see that there is no, this is the house of God, this is all our, it's our home, all of us. So that is what he was putting across. So whenever you would see a need inside church, you were able to go to him and say, I have identified this. But at that time, what was not clear to me was, as I'm going forward and said, I have identified that there are no chairs here. There's this family that we are going to take as part of us and share with them what we have. Because on a serious note, that family, I remember the husband of this lady, he used to tell my husband that my kids are sleeping without food. My husband, my wife is not well, and all this. And you are looking in the space, and I'm like, no, but there's something that we can do to share honestly. So that's how we started. It wasn't like one had also extra, the needs that one I was seeing, they were like touching, and we gave. So from time to time, I would go to him when we were seeing, because he had made sure that he says to us, when you see a need, don't wait to be asked, So when I see something, I would go and say, like one of the things that I went to him, I remember he had in that 2016 now, that when we were at church, it was now going to 2017, he he gave us some document. I will bring those 2 documents. I have them with me outside. Then the first document, it was of the church government, you know. And he in this church government, I read the thing. I was not frequently going to every single meeting. And what I'm saying, I was not frequently going to every single meeting. There used to be Wednesday meetings. There used to be Friday meetings and Sunday meetings. Because I was staying in Pretoria, the church was in Merton. I would not attend all the 3. There were some that I would skip in between. Then I would be there on Sunday. And that was the year that I was also expectant. So whenever he would give material at church, my husband used to give me what was handed out in the teachings. Because the other reason that made us to stay there were like, you know, he's teaching and he's referencing the Bible. So, and most of the things that his angle was always like, there's so much in the church space that hasn't been taught properly, that has not been exploited. That is why there are prophets. God is talking through the prophets so that the mysteries in the Bible can be made plain and clear, you know, to the ordinary people. And then you are thinking, okay, there has to be more in this whole thing, as he's saying, and you would read the scriptures. So I read this document, and it's talking about church government, but all the document was saying, I, the prophet, you know, you are supposed to respect me because I'm the authority that was being put here by God, and you need to obey me so that you can benefit from, you know, the whole teachings and everything. Something that it sounded like it was fine and sound. But when I look at it, I go to him, I said to myself, I said, Prophet, you are saying this is church government. I agree with you. But in a church space here, as we are a growing church, we need to have an organogram. There needs to be department, there needs to be finance department here at church. There needs to be everything that is happening here. It needs to be plain on the structure. And this has to be a living document. It must have the names of people. As people are coming in and going, you must also update it. But for a structure, we can put pastors and every department. And then he looks at me, he said, okay, what you are saying, put it down in writing. You know, because you seem to have an idea of what you are talking about. And I take time. I draft this document. I put the functions, what should be the functions and everything, and I hand it back to him. And then he says, okay, it's good. And then at church, because the people, commissioners that are going to this church, like I didn't explain my background. When I joined the church, I was a scientist. And many people that I had met inside church were professionals. You know, we were people that have at least, you are not just at church, but your life it's empty in a way. You don't have anything that you are doing. So most of us, you had business, you had a career, you know, you were busy people. So even when you walk in there, the intention was you are at church and then you see what you can do and then you are out. So it used to be that type of environment. So I give it to him, and then he goes back to the church and said, we're going to put structures. You are aware that we are still a young church, we are a growing church, but we are putting things in place. So if you see things are not in place, please bear with us. We are going to put committees and everything. I'm part of the committees, even for any reason, like because he has said, you see something, you come across. So from that 2016 beginning, when we were now committed there, I was always in the background. If I see something, I run to him, I said, but there's order that needs to be, you know, implemented here. It seems like something is not going to be right, and going forward, there needs to be proper structures. It can't be all. And he would agree in my face. So even when he comes and then to the others are getting interested that at least we are growing. So we see that, no, we are not just stationary here, nothing. It's, you know, it's just going to be church where you bring money and there's no accountability. But he did that for a solid 3 years. Every time he would be like, we are putting structures, to a point where I was aware that there's putting structures, because he would say he's putting structures, and then after a few months, you people are not ready. That's how he used to talk to us. And then he will disband the teams that he had put together. And then as he's disbanding the teams, he would come to me and said, I know you worry a lot. You mustn't worry about this. God will take care of these other things. Because in one of the things he said to us, people are coming to church but they don't stay, they leave. And I say to him, but people come into church. I even say to him, I understand there's deliverance here, there's prophecies, there's everything, but those are not the core things that keep a person in a relationship with God. They have to have a full view of the love of God. Why are they here? You understand the purpose of God for their life. There has to be something that binds you more in the environment than you coming for deliverance and every time you are coming for the same thing. So we say no, but there must be salvation. But anything that we would talk, I was the one that in the church, I'm always with a notebook. Whoever remembers me at church, for the most part, I was the lady with the notebook, because whatever that I see, I would write it, I would put a solution to it, and then I would go to him and then present it to him, and then he would say, this will implement this, because you wouldn't just implement anything on your own. So after that has been done, and now he says to me, I mustn't worry about salvation, God will take care of it. But we had made a recommendation to say, at least let there be some notes, that even if a person is coming to church to visit, they have, they can go back and read that life is not all about deliverance at church. That they need to learn reading the Bible and stuff. So for something like 6 months, we put this messages inside the gift bag that we give to visitors. We give it, and then after some time it falls away. So I was also aware that when something falls away, it is his way of saying, I implemented your suggestion. So when it falls off, don't come back to me to enforce it, because now it's like it's your personal agenda. He had that most of the time. It's like now you are intruding, you are overriding my decisions. So if you had done something, you just do it for some time, and then off you leave. So that was in terms of because I'm answering this. I watched yesterday when the commissioners were asking about Joseph when they were here, where in this church, was there a structure? What was happening inside here? What kept you people in this? To be honest, what kept us there was the hope that this church is starting. It is our South African brother. It is our home country. We are going to grow this person, and he was a person that was approachable. You could go, even if after some time you see that things are not working out. He's allowing them intentionally to fall, but then it is his church, he's the one having the mandate for the church and everything, but at least something was tried out. So that was the space that was in, but the hope that, okay, one day it's going to be, a place where everything is in place, the structures, this everything. It's not just us coming to church like that. So that used to be my role for the most part. So when he's putting committees, I'm in whatever committee. When he's putting pastors, at some point I'm one of the pastors, I'm one of the disciples, and he would always say, you are my background person. So whatever happens, you must always make sure that you are the eye that sees, and then you come and report, so that whatever things that are not good, we fix them. So he's giving me that impression that we are here, we are fixing, it's not a moving buses yet. We are all here to make this church grow. So in this whole thing, now he says to me, he wants to start to have seminars, because we had said people can't just come to church for deliverance and all. There's more to, that keeps a person at church than just deliverance. And then he says to me, he wants to do seminars. So these seminars, he tells me what he wants in a seminar. Wants couple seminar, wants ladies seminar, wants men's seminars and everything. And I want people to come and eat after the seminar. After I've taught, I want people to eat and everything. And then we say to him, okay, we can even invite other people from outside to come and teach. And then his answer is like, no, at this point, I don't want anyone coming outside to teach. I'll be the only teacher teaching you people the ways, the ways of God, how things should be done. So the seminar, when the seminar was happening, how I opened myself also for abusing the space was, he told me what he wanted, and then I would take this and then go back to the other pastors at church and said, he wants a seminar on this date. This is what he said he wants on seminar. So we need to prepare for this. So all the preparation money, they wouldn't be coming out of the church budget. So So when I ask others, because when I got there already the church had started 1 year, how are you guys now, how are we paying for this, because he wants a seminar? No, he told you that he wanted a seminar and stuff. So out of my mind that I'm seeing this rural environment, we are in a tent, we are still going to build the church, and he used to say that there isn't money enough at church, and at that time when you come, it's a tent, you will see the cars on Sunday, there's music, there's people and everything, so you are aware that, okay, there might not be enough here. So I would take out of my own budget at home. I do the seminar, I buy the food, I do everything. So the next seminar, it was like that from 2016 until the end of 2019. That whenever there's a seminar at church, there's a seminar, there's plans and everything, but there's no money to do it. And then he says, who did it the last time? So it's the poor who did it the last time. If it's the poor who did it the last time, let the poor come and do it. And then to the others also, it's like, you guys are useless. You would now start to talk like that. And I remember so well that I never, in my heart, I never liked the language of the aggression that he would talk. But over time, he had taught us that he becomes aggressive because we are not ready to receive from God what God wants to do for us. And him, when he sees what God has prepared and people are missing out on their blessings and everything because they're not ready to give financially and everything, it frustrates him. That is why he will be agitated. So most of the time when I would see even the anger in him, I knew when he was agitated. Now it was like, you know what, we are failing God here. And it wasn't just me, it was the general feeling amongst the disciples that when you see him angry, that you just knew that it's like we did something wrong and God is angry at us. So at any given point in time now, we needed to make him happy. So I would then financially give and all that. So the seminars will happen. These seminars, people were not paying to come to seminars. By 2019, I started to see a trend where now, and he would put so many of them now, it was now a business seminars now, and they are adding up now, and people are paying now. The ladies you pay, the men you pay, the couples you pay, and they are like that, but the whole setup of it, I would incur it. But people are now coming to pay. The one seminar is 350 if it's ladies. When it's couples, it's 500. When it's business, it's 1,500. So I'm seeing all these things and I'm like, okay, but this environment. But at the same time, there used to be something, commissioners, in that environment. You are seeing this, there's something, I don't know if I would say there was just no, because one was now having a guilt, which I knew it wasn't normal. He needed to be happy, God needed to be happy. That whatever that he would say now, it just has to be done the way he says it. If you are not agreeing with it, you must just, you are in rebellion in a way. So I tell them that the seminars are too much for me. I cannot do all of them. I'll only be able to do one because of the financials that is going in that. And then he was angry, and I was aware that he was angry. And then I was told that I wasn't supposed to do all of that. But in me now, the one financial abuse that I did, I took care of all those seminars. 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. I did them. And even to the others, they knew that if there's any deco that goes with it, whatever that goes with it, the food that goes with it, I was supposed to do it. And silently, I took that abuse of, that pressure and that abuse. Because he was aware that I was working, and I was working where I was working at that time. One of his strategies that when we went in, the reason that there were professional people in his church, business people in his church, which were his priority that he took interest in. If I was there, obviously the type of people that you will invite to church were people that you are either working with, or you studied with, or you are doing business with. So there will be people that were okay. And I remember one of the things that he would emphasize: don't bring people that are too needy. In this environment, we need to balance. You know, there must be those that you know, can uplift others. So you who are from the industry, you know, bring people that would bring resources in this place. So 2016, when we go to church, my husband, when he comes to testify, commissioners, he will give his side of the story. Because he told him that there was a call of God on his life. He told him that he needed to resign from work and start serving him at the church full time.
Sorry, I thought if your husband is coming,
he will talk. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, what I wanted you to do, because if you just give the stories, give us what are the issues that
I went through.
Are your complaints.
Okay, my complaint, I will explain, Commissioner, why I was talking about him. Okay, then I can start with me, but it started with him, which it affected us as a family. Because in this whole financial strain that I took when I was there, and I realized that Prophet Samuel identified his victims. And once you were the victim, he would not just drain you once. You were his project. He will take, like, it started with me as a simple thing that I'm doing, you know, his events inside there, you know, I'm sponsoring there. It was a small part. But there was a bigger part that he was already at the time draining me financially. And it's something that because he had put God and saving inside it, it would not be, I would not come to the next person and say, this is what is happening to me, you know, and he tells you that it is between you and God and you are not talking. In 2019, when I came to church, I came with my husband. There was someone that was like a sister to me that I brought to church. She was also a scientist. The three of us, Commissioner, why I'm mentioning my husband and I'm mentioning the lady I brought to church, he encouraged us to resign from work. And as you resign from work, at every stage, when it started with him in 2016, and then it was the lady I brought to church, then it was me, he had plans for our monies, which was the money that when you leave, he already knew that you were going to pay tithe, you are going to give offering, you are going to pay a seed. And because he had said to us that God wanted us in business full time, the business that you were having, he was saying it is our first business, or your first of everything belongs to God. So every month, without fail, we were his financial support. We were the ones financing his project of the church. And all this money, where was it coming from? First, when his money went in there, when he left work, because now he's supposed to serve full time and he's supposed to build the house for God, his money went in there. We were already in business and working at the same time. We couldn't expand our business as per plan, because when he said he must go full time, I said, okay, you go full time, it wouldn't be a bad thing. You focus more on business and on this saving, but you need to make sure that we have money. And then in this whole space, now the money went towards the building of the church. And commissioners, when I say money, I'm not saying, I know money to somebody, for me 10,000, if it's a lot of money, to somebody it's not a lot of money. But from the money that he had received from his pension fund, about 70% of what he got went in there.
How much is that money?
That money, when we were sitting and calculating, he had given over 300,000 for the building. Because now when we were in the tent in 2016, towards end of 2017, he's making plans to build. And as he's making plans, he was making plans around his money. Because he said, you come and then you serve and then you must build a house for God. So he takes his money, he gives in there. And that was the time that I also had a child around the time, towards end of 2016. So that prophecy that he said when we got to church that you were going to have a child. The child was now there, and then he says, you need to redeem the child. If you don't redeem, your first child, now it's going to be like a cursed child. You need to give money for him. So from the proceeds that my husband had, he gave over 100,000 for the child. And during that time, commissioners, he makes sure that as a family, because he had made my husband like, you mustn't listen too much what your wife is saying, because this one, she's okay, she's bright and all that, but she's been used by the demons. They are using her to block your finances. They are using her so that you as a family, you don't prosper. So you must make sure that when it comes to financial decisions, you give for you and for her. So by the time that now as a nursing mother, I even remember, commissioners, I had depression. I was taking medication. I had to, I have a child. He is out of his job. He is, the money has went in there. The church building, yes, there are plans for the building, but I'm thinking it came from us. There isn't any more income. But I don't know how, somehow in my mind, as I was taking that medication, I saw that it wasn't good for me and for the baby. I just let that, go. And then I was like, I'm still I was still at a job and I was still in my career. So I continued and I said, okay, we will just see what we can do of the business, because I'm not going to be angry over this, because I can see that this building, God's house, it wasn't part of the plan when we got there, but then it happened. I let it go. So we continue. Because he had said to my husband, you serve full time, our resources, our car. There was a point where people thought our car was his car. He was driving him around. We were putting petrol. He's got a farm. He's selling spinach. If he needed to go to the market, we needed to put a trailer on our buggy so that we transport him to the market. We transport his spinach, because now he said, you are here, you are saving. At some point, the two of us, we are talking, and then I'm angry, and then I said, but this serving God, it seems like we are just dishing out to a point that we are running dry. Was this part of the deal that when you are going to serve God? And then he said, I'm also frustrated, because he tells me about time and everything, that I mustn't be in a hurry. When you serve God, you don't choose which areas you serve and everything. And because he had made himself that you can't even have a conversation, the two of you, about him. When we talk, you'll be like, we talk, we have an argument, because it was even affecting our marriage. And then he says, but be careful as how you talk about prophet. He's a man of God, and he hears us from his house. And because those were the teachings that he was teaching us at church. And then we were like, so we would talk about this whole thing, and then you leave it hanging, because you can't talk much about it. And he has been warned that me, I'm being used by the demons. So 2018, I remember something happened. That in my mind at the time, before I went into that space, there was an element that you are aware of everything that's happening in your space. But once you went in there, now you start being there most of the time. It's like your whole view of the outside world diminishes. You only deal with what is just in front of you. The lady that I brought to church, she leaves work. And as she leaves work, he calls me prophet, and then he tells me that she has to leave. And she's aware that I'm not letting her go and serve full time. But the reason she told her to leave was that her mother was going to initiate her into being a sangoma. So and this will end up killing her. So I must just let go. And then I was like, this is too much for me. But if it was for her own, for her own good, because I remember having a conversation with her, and I'm like, but it was affecting me personally, because this was the person I brought to church. And in this whole space, I was now checking. It's my husband, it's her. But nonetheless, let me not group this whole thing. After 6 months after she left, she went to stay at church. And when she was staying there in the mission house, she wasn't supposed to tell people where she was. And her mom, because she knew that she was with me most of the time, her mom calls me and asks me, where's her daughter? And then I said, you know what? She was supposed to have told you. At this point in time, I'm not in a position to be telling you everything, because I thought she told you. I don't even know what to tell you that she didn't tell you. But nonetheless, ma, can you call her? And the mother was angry at me that, something. But me, I knew what the prophet told me, that this one must leave work. After 6 months, she chases her away out of the mission house. And then when she chases her away, she says to me she must go back and work. I must help her back to find the work. I remember I was seeing this whole thing, but because of she would paint that she's now out of danger, and the demons, she won't now die, because I was asking, if she left now, she came here, you said it was her destiny, why is she now supposed to go back and work? And little did I realize at the time it was because the money, when she made her to leave, it was to take her money. So she already had plans for her money, because she brought all the money to church. She didn't even take anything home. And during that time when she was there, she made sure that she doesn't communicate much with me. So this is how I'm talking about things that have affected me. And of the 3 people that she made to resign, I was then the next person. And there are other many more that I cannot talk about, that I became to know about their issues that they left as well. Because when you are a professional, when things are running dry now in your life, now you don't have money and anything, she tells you that now it's safe, you can go back and start all over again. So in this whole space, he used for a whole 1 year, he used to say to my husband that you guys, your business now was supposed to be at another level. But my husband didn't have money to expand on the business at the same time, because all the money went in there, and with what he was having, it wasn't just enough. And then he says to me, but your wife can resign, and you guys are sitting on money. If she resigns and then you expand, on your business, on your plans. This is now when it was the beginning of 2019. I remember that in this whole 2018, when he's busy talking this, he spoke about it to a point where I couldn't resist it. Yes, it was every time coming. When you go to see him, you don't want to leave your job and expand your business, and God is saying in this job of yours, you will not grow beyond where you are now. Where your grace is, it's in business. So to a point where I gave in. I said to myself, okay, what I'll do here, we will go into our business, we'll put the business plans, let's put the business plans on our own. We put them together, but in any case, anything that you do, he's asking you, he wants to know your every move. When are you planning to leave? What are you going to do when you leave? So those things you discuss with them, because for any reason, if you omit the information, it's like you didn't make him aware. So when things are going bad, you wouldn't have anyone to cover you and to pray for you and anything. So we tell him, okay, fine, this is what we will do in that space. So he kept on checking on us. How is she doing now? Okay, things were tight because now there was no income coming. We were going to go into a new business. The new business did well because of what we had put in place. But him having that, because he knew that we were his project, he was now, this business was supposed to support church. So at church there was always projects. Like one of the projects that he had was to build the toilets for the church from outside inside to inside the church, because now there was a building. So in this toilet project, we had to build the septic tank outside, which it has costed us over 120,000. We built this septic tank, we buy all the materials, we pay the laborers, and every Sunday you go to church, every Monday he's letting the office to call you. He wants information, how far is the project doing, what are you, when are they coming to deliver the material. So we're always going to the hardware, you buy material, you take the slips back to church so that when they deliver, the slips are there. And I no longer now had income. We only have the business, and the business for him to tell us that the business, for it to be sustainable, to grow, God is saying it must support all these projects. So what was coming from the business? Before we can spend on us, you would pay your tithe, you would give in your offering. We were on, I don't know what to call it, that support thing. We were supporting projects. There was never a time where we didn't have any project. The toilets I mentioned is one of them. We had so many that it is us as a family that would do them. Other people inside church were always being called, building fund, building what, building. Yes, the building is here, it was already completed, but there was always building. But in this whole thing, you are just taking out. We take out to a point now that our business was not doing well. When it started not to do well, we also don't have money. And then I remember we go to him, and then I say to him, this thing is there's just too much here. There's problems here, and part of the problem is I don't have anything anymore. What is coming is always going out. And then he now says that I should go and look for a job for a short time, and then I'll come back. It is at that point that I think I woke up from that sleep that I was in. Because in a church, and how he made sure that we were always sleeping commissioners, I know that as I'm talking to someone who's out there is thinking, maybe this person doesn't hear herself when she's talking. And I hear myself fully well. We would sleep in the church. And when I say sleeping, there were things that when he started doing them, part of, even when you were going to, and he makes sure that no one escapes it. We go in there, everyone was supposed to get a laying on of hand. And once he touches you, you are on the floor. When you stand up from that floor, you are dizzy. Being dizzy, you are dizzy. After that, if that was not enough for those who would have registered to go to prayer line if they were sick, they would have received now a second dose of laying on of hands. And the third dose of what we would receive there, he would say it's holy laughter. He would make you laugh and said you must receive the joy of the Holy Spirit when you are laughing, and God is working on your problems. That thing, it used to be so contagious that if I start laughing, the next person starts laughing. The whole church now, when you come in, you walk into that space, if you were to look at those videos, it's something that is not decent. People are laughing. People is like they're drunk. He makes people to dance. The keyboard person must do the fast keys, and people you'll be dancing. It's like we looked drunk in there. And I remember many times that when I leave church, I couldn't walk properly. You are walking, but either you fall, your senses, it's like you are just you can't even, if you are to ask me my name in that point, I would just laugh. I would not even answer you what was my name. So it's things that he continually did. And other times he will be saying he's taking us for this messy land thing, and then the messy land is just sand. He puts there, and then once he starts putting the hand on you, you fall. So we would be so dirty, and people that are looking at you when you are rolling here, you are dirty. People now are laughing at you. It used to be that thing that at that time when you're in that environment, you just went through that thing. You come back the next day, you are tired. You don't know what happened to you. You recover by midweek. When it's Wednesday, that's when you are like, okay, my body's coming back to normal. It's like, okay, I can take complex things. That's what I experienced personally. And many people used to go through that, to a point that at the point where I had woken up, now I'm angry, he's telling me to go to work. And I can see that all our resources have went to him. They have went to church. And I'm looking for answers. And at that time, he doesn't have time now to talk to me. He doesn't have time now to address the problem. When I had money, because now we were supporting every month. When you bring money to him, it was a lot of money wasn't supposed to be EFT. It was money that was supposed to come cash. Because the things of God, you must do them cash, and then he will bless the money so that it can stretch and go far and everything. And when I bring the money, I was a Titus. He would say, you are now a Titus, making the work of Paul easier. At the time, he quotes scriptures all the time. So now I'm asking myself, what happened to the Titus now that when I come, you are no longer addressing my issues now. You are running away from me. I remember I moved from a stage that I was angry. I didn't want to hear about God. I didn't want to hear about this church that has built me, things that I knew that they were the core values of my life. I didn't want to hear, because I would say, God, I gave you everything. What else do you want from me now? Because in that space when we didn't even have, he would still call me and said, you must trust God more. You need not to be afraid. You need to give God. And then I would leave now and say, but what does he want me to give now? I have nothing. I was now starting to experience, and that was 2019 towards the end. I started having anger. I started having anger in me. I would still go to church, because if you are not going to church, he's got a monitoring system. Your disciple must call you and check you are at church. the office will call you and check if you are at church. So if you miss church, somehow even if because the environment was not the environment where I talk to the next person, because he knew that once you start talking to the next person, issues start coming out. Issues starts coming out. You would hear the story of the next person, and you can see some trends. So I started being angry in this environment, but I still show myself. And of the things now, this is the time where now I have woken up. I started even now. I go and I read for myself. I'm like, okay, I don't want. I start distancing myself from these teachings of his. I hear them, but even as I hear the teachings, because most of his teachings, you go to the Bible, they are there. But I realized that with time that there was a lot of omission. If he teaches on something, he would just pick something that he's going to use as a manipulating scripture to say you give more. But the rest of the things he would have just brushed them over and gave him more scriptures that would have supported his view. Then I started reading things, and then I go back. Now I'm becoming now my normal self that would go read things for myself, and then I go internet, I research, and I find that even the things that he was calling holy laughter, when I research, this is something that is occultic practices. They are documented. And then I start to think to myself, God, I don't understand. For the past 4 years or 5 years of my life, I thought I was at church. Where was I? Did I walk into something that was not church, that was not God, that I didn't see? I became dizzy. I became angry, I became bitter, I wanted answers. And when you start seeing that you are not now as responding as before, and people living in a church can now see you, that this one is not as functional as before. He's not the up and down person, the bubbly person that would talk to people and everything. He now starts preaching about us. He's saying, like he's making better examples about us, and he goes there into the pulpit and say, people went into business, they were doing well, money was coming in. What happened now to the money? Where did the money go in? People are having the spirit of starting and stopping. What happened to the toilet? Because the toilet project, as we finished the septic tank, we came inside and then we said, we cannot do the cosmetics inside. If you do it, when we are back on our feet, we'll bring the money. Because right now we have to pay our bond, we have to pay everything else. And I'm looking at my life, I'm like, before I walked into that church, I was a whole person in my mind, in my body, in everything, in my actions. I was not rich, but I was not indebted. Now I can't even survive. I can't put food on the table. There were days now that we are struggling. We don't have food. We don't have anything. We have to go, even for this project now, that when he keeps on phoning, you have to go and ask for money from people so that you can go and pay for his project. And then I see, I said, what has become of my life? And then I start to see that, but there's something in this environment. But for the likes of me, I'm unable now to go to the next person and said, church has destroyed me, because it's hard now to even say it out of my mouth. And in the whole space of my anger and my pain and everything, we no longer, as me and my husband, we no longer had a healthy relationship, because I started blaming him also. Because I'm like, some of the things I would come and ask, and when I ask, we can't talk about this prophet, what he was saying to us, what we were doing. We had a lot now that was conflict between us, because I said, sometimes I would ask this and then you would say this, because you were spending most of the time with him and everything. But I lockdown also came, thankfully, as bad as it was for me. It was that time where I was able to be on my own, starting now to listen to other people's stories, because when I was there at church, one of the things I remember that he didn't like people reading. He didn't like people listening to other people's preachings. He would discourage those. And nonetheless, one would not even have time to listen to the other people's preachings and everything, because you spend most of the time at church. So in this whole thing, I knew that church has destroyed me, commissioners. I knew that the person that I regarded as a prophet, it was not a prophet. I knew that it was an occultic guy. And I was his victim from that 2016, when I would go with the ideas and say, this is not right here, we can fix this, because I've been at church my whole life. I knew how a healthy church setup was. So I knew that something was wrong here, but I couldn't even talk it to somebody. I was just internalizing my pain and my anger and my frustration and my head. I remember at one point I said, God, I think I had done everything. Now if I die here, you know what, I have nothing. Even if I leave, I have nothing. It's best that my life can just end here, because if this is the race that I've ran. But somehow in this whole thing, I remember I would just be seeing videos on YouTube. So whenever I had data, I would listen to these videos, and there was a time I saw Sihle, and when Sihle spoke, because some of this whole thing as they are happening, I've never been abused at church before. I've never seen anyone abused at church before. The churches that I've went to, I knew that I was always the leader, helping other people, receiving help from other people, loving other people, receiving love. So there was nothing that there was nothing that was abused, that was, that I thought this has happened, and now I saw my life. And commissioners, when I say financially, in Prophet Samuel's Heaven's Church, even my mom, he would ask me, how's your mom doing? I say, my mom is doing well. I would just say that she's doing well. Have you seen her? I said, no, I haven't seen her. I've just sent her money for food. At that time I said, I send money for food. Why are you sending her money for food? You must give a gift voucher. Money is spiritual and everything. And at the back of my mind, I'm like, I hear money is spiritual, but when we bring money to you, we bring it cash. Our parents, we must buy them, give vouchers. And then I was like, this guy, what he's saying. Some of the things at that time, I would just, I hear them and I bypass them, but this is church. This is church, and then he's maybe worried about us, that he will be bewitched or what, because there was so much of witchcraft that he would talk about, to a point that I didn't even know what was witchcraft myself. Then, because I can't give my mother money, it's spiritual. The car guard at the parking lot, you don't give money, because money is spiritual. All the money that, when I say this guy destroyed me, his church destroyed me, his God destroyed me, all the money that was coming, before you do everything with money, before I could do everything with our money, as a family, it was money that was first supposed to go to him. The little that was left, it was what we would go and service debts, and so that one could eat when one was affording to do that. So it was that type of environment that was centered around money. And as I snapped out of whatever that he did to us, because I believe, and without a shadow of a doubt, when you have money, he knows and he sees it, because he'll be talking to you. When are you receiving what? You need to report. I'm expecting X amount of money by when and stuff. And then when you receive, first thing you need to service God. So it wasn't even an issue that he's not aware that you have money. So it's something that he had. So I would hear other people speaking. I remember the time when me not knowing them, they were here and the commissioner was asking them questions of what happened there. And one of the questions he posed was that, how is the government going to help people if now when people are going to churches are becoming poor? And Mopedi was explaining that, at church, even when people gave, even when they didn't have anything, I burst out crying, because there was a point of reference I needed at the time. I knew those were the things I did. And that was the result they were talking about without me being at their church, knowing them. I was seeing them in my own life, and I took my laptop, I started writing. I was writing to the commissioner and say, this is, I didn't even know that one day I'll be here. I was starting to put that, and as I'm writing one day at a time, I started on the 10th of November. It was like, somehow it helped me to heal, because I could. Because it is at that time that I could put it with words. As I'm typing, I'm putting with words. I'm like, this is what happened, this is what happened, and for this I don't need prophet, I don't need anyone, I don't need someone who can come and say this didn't happen. At that time I had the answers now in front of me. I was hearing Pastor Makado talking, and I was thinking to myself, here I am. I used to read. I used to listen to, TV, radio, everything that was information apart from my line of duty of what I knew. And I was like, the things that they were talking about, I didn't know, and in my mind I didn't even understand that you can just go to church and you are under witchcraft spell at church. And I knew that thing that I say is a witchcraft spell, it happened to me. Today as I'm here, I'm not that whole person that I was. I'm not that person that could give the next person 5 rand and say go and buy bread. I'm not that person that could go to a school. Those who knew me, they knew I used to gather my friends and said, we have made it. By God's grace, we are okay. There's a child in Alexandra, that's the area I used to go and support school kids, buy them uniform, give them food, not out of getting money from sponsor or anything, saving what I had, encouraging my friends to save and my colleagues at the time, and then we will save and then we would go there. That was how it was, and I knew that I wasn't that person. Being at church has taken that away from me. In my family, whenever my cousins had kids and everything, I used to adopt their kids before I had my own kids. I'll adopt them. This one is my project to a point that even some of my relatives used to say, you have been taken advantage of. You take so and so's child, me, you must also take my child. I say, no, it's not a problem. When you are helping the next person, you receive help yourself, in some way. That's how life should be. Life shouldn't just be centered around me, that everything will just be for me. So at the time, as I'm writing to the commissioners, I'm like, it was a 10-page that I wrote. It's there on my laptop. I'm writing. And then it comes to my mind, I said, that person that I brought to church, I remember I saw her being destroyed. And after she left her job, and then she was chased out of the mission house. She had to go and stay at home. It took a year for me to help her to as she was applying to get another job. And I remember I saw her, she was a zombie. And to the general church at that time, no one was talking to her, finding out what was wrong. Instead, people were coming to me, what's wrong with your sister? And I would talk to her, what's wrong? What happened? And then she would just say, I'll say I'm fine. That's how she referred to me. I'll say I'm fine. And I said, but you are not fine. So during this whole time, as I'm writing, I said, you know what, I need to have a meeting with that lady and talk to her, tell her my experience at the place we went to. It was not church, it was not a good place. I saw her being destroyed. I'm destroyed. My family is destroyed. I need to have a conversation with her. And then I called her and I said, can we meet? Because she was no longer coming as much. And during the lockdown and everything, even when we went back, I decided that I'm no longer going back. So whenever he would ask and call and say, where are you? I'll say, no, it's locked down. I need to look after the child. I can't just leave the child. The child. I was healing, trying to heal on my own. So church space was not my thing. So in November, we have an appointment. And then I tell her, and then I said, this is what has happened at church. I know that you also went through a lot. I wanted to hear her experience at that time, because I was like, when I used to ask you, how are you? You used to say you are fine, but you are not fine. And this has been my discoveries. This has been my experience. This is what I have seen. This is what I've experienced. And this is not right. It happened to you. And I could see you were not fine. It happened to me now that I know that this is the space. And then as I talked to her, because I made an appointment on Friday, we're going to meet on Monday. As I talked to her, this prophet calls her. And when her phone rings, I hear now it's prophet talking to her. And then I look at her and then he asks her, who are you with? Who are you talking to? And then she tells him, he said, I'm talking to Dipo. Yeah, I told you that Dipo is going to tell you about church. What is she saying to you? Give her the phone. I want to talk to her. And then I refuse to talk to her. Then she puts her phone on a speaker. And then now she's repeating. She says, tell her this. So the phone is on the speaker. So when this one is speaking, Prophet Samuel is speaking, she's repeating what he is saying, that but the body language has changed, because as he's calling, he starts, as I'm telling her my story, she was crying, she was in tears, because what the pain that it was coming out of me, it's something that she could identify with. She's talking there and then she's saying, God would help us. She's in pain, but I'm like, okay, I want us to have this whole closure so that we can move forward. And then now when this call comes, and And then she changes in her body language. I could see that she's terrified. She's no longer herself now. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I don't understand. What is this? Was she tracking her? Was she monitoring her? What is this whole thing that when we are meeting, she calls and then she says to her, tell her that she's a witch. Now she's after everything, after she took my money, after she took all the resources, after I've served her with everything that I had. Now she says, yeah, tell her that she's a witch. And then I keep quiet because in me, I didn't want to have any exchange of words with him because I was like, there's nothing that I would ever talk with this guy. All the time that I went there, I went to destroy myself under his teachings, under his God, under his church. I don't want even to exchange words with him. I cannot talk with him because there's nothing that would make sense. And then he says, yeah, she's a witch. Tell her that she's following after the footsteps of her mother, which is a witch. And then I listen to him, and then I let him speak, and then he starts cursing. And then as he starts cursing, in my mind I'm like, this is someone that used to stand there and talk about God. He's cursing at me that I will not make it, I will amount to nothing, and you know, he says all those words. But at the time, I think it was not paining me at the time because I was like, whatever that I internalized, whatever that now I concluded, this is the result of it, and it's the end of it here. No one will say what you are talking is not true. What you it's hearsay. It's what this is the conclusion of my conversation with him in this. But I'm quiet, and then he's saying all those things, and he starts swearing at the husband, and he says that people want his church and everything. They're after his church and everything. And I knew that it's a lie, and then I let him finish talking, and then we dropped the phone, and then I say to this lady, I said, you know what? He's saying I'm a witch. All what he's saying, I hear him. He says my mother is a witch. Anyway, I remind her that remember that your mother was a witch at some point. He was telling people that you were mad. You were in witchcraft. That's why he chased you out of church. I said, but anyway, let's just put it as closure. Where we were not a church. We were destroyed and other people got destroyed. So that was the abuse I suffered in his hands. And as though that was just not enough, he will even have the audacity to take my image, when he's praying for you there at church, you are thinking you are at church, and most of the time he's the one doing communication. You spirit of what come out. And even myself, I remember at some point I'm thinking, this spirit, I just want to see this spirit coming out, whatever spirit is referring to, because how can I be at church my whole life and every time when you are here, you are busy being prayed for spirit, because spirit will be there and then they will leave. If you are in a good church that you used to say he's got the anointing of God to deliver people, to bless people and everything. So he would say witchcraft out, what out, you know, as he's praying for you. And he's praying for a lot of things that you don't even know which spirit is supposed to come out of you actually. So he would be posting those things that I'm delivered from witchcraft, it is him who knows the witchcraft he's talking about. So out of all these things, I knew, commissioners, that I'm coming here in my, I don't know, today I think I'm a bit better than where I was before, that I could even come and talk. There was a time I couldn't talk. I couldn't internalize that being at church in a place that was meant for me to be in the presence and in the love of God and not being abused and not be taken advantage of and not things being stolen from me, using God, using the Bible, saying you must give this, you must, you know, even for coming here to prepare, it was just too much for me. I think what I'm just talking about is just a summary of those things that I could remember and say, this ones I can take them out of my mouth and say, this is what has happened. So financially, he drained me. Emotionally, he drained me. Intellectually, he drained me. He made sure that, you know, everything, the skill, you know, the skill that I had, he would just use you. You, because you are good at this, you must do this. Whenever he wanted to go and do crusades, because people, and he was, for the most part of it that one realizes after, even when he goes to do crusades, he didn't want to show his face until the day of the crusade. If you want to go and do a crusade, he will send us. I'll be one of the people that he would send. You go and talk to the pastors in that community that I'm coming to preach. When they would ask for him, he must come and tell us who he is, what are his intentions and everything. He will not go. He will have given us that mandate to go and organize the crusade for him, and you are thinking, okay, it's for people to come and hear about the saving grace of God, and you go all out for that environment, and then he will not show himself. You go there, you do everything, and then he has crusade. And one of the crusades that he had, it was in Northwest. I was part of it. The pastors in that, they were demanding him to come before they could allow him to come and host his crusade there. He refused to go. Nonetheless, we go and then do everything according to the events that you go to. You go to the municipality, you follow all their processes, and then you know how your event is going to be, and then they give you authorization, you can come and have the event, and then you find some local pastors there that you could talk to. In that event, eventually the pastors, there were those that, and people who were not because they were seeing him, people who were seeing us. When they were seeing me, they are thinking, these people, they look harmless. There can't be anything that is deceptive in these people. But he knew that he was always using us as fronting. Him who will come at the back to achieve all his evil intention. After us, we have went there and said, we are coming. There's going to be a church. There's going to be prayer and everything. In that event there, after the crusade there, people used to come to be prayed for. And there was one child who was sick after the crusade, who he laid his hands on. The child was hallucinating, seeing snakes, collapsing and everything. He goes to the doctor, and the mother explains to the doctor and say, this child, ever since there was a church, by this prophet, after he went there for prayer, the child, this is what is happening to my child. The doctor said, no, you need to look for this prophet. He must come and explain what happened to the child, because this is beyond medical reasons and everything. And the mother goes to the police station to report to the police station. There was a lady there, the police officer who was in charge of events when you go in, that you were talking to, that we are coming with a crusade and everything, because the pastors in the area, they had refused, except for the few ones that they didn't see any harm in having church. So the lady now calls me and says, Dipu, you need to come. There's this now issue and of this child, you must tell your prophet to come. And then I tell him, I said, okay, I will call the office and tell him. And I tell him and I report and I say, there's this child now who's seen snakes here, and the police officer is asking you to go and address the situation. He keeps quiet. He doesn't go back there. This lady keeps on calling me, and I see that this is beyond me. There's nothing that I will now say to the police officer, and then I start not to answer her calls when she's calling me. I just tell her that I reported to the prophet, and then he would come. Then after some time, we leave that child like that. I don't even, and in my heart now I'm thinking, I wonder what could have happened here. If now he's curing people, he's delivering people and everything, why can't he now just go back there and pray for that child and everything? So he comes to church and then he does his sermons, and then he's breaking there. He says, the people at Porch are saying that there's a child who's seen snakes. Me who's taking out snakes, how can I put snakes? And then at the time when he's saying this, I remember in my head that anytime a person would come inside church and then they said they have seen snakes, they have, they came to church, they've seen snakes, they dreamt snakes and everything. He used to come and just rub it off. It was like, this thing is from these people, you mustn't talk about this and anything like that. So after all my experience, I even look back and I said, I'm the one that he even used my image to go and destroy other people. Because if I had known before that this was not a church where I was at, a church of God for that matter, I wouldn't have went there and then tell people there's going to be crusade, people are going to be prayed for, you come and you fellowship with us and anything. Because even anywhere he has went, he leaves trails of destroying people. And it is him who understands the spiritual impact of why we had went there. He needed to advance his own things. It wasn't for church. So that is the space now that even when we came back, you are thinking, that whole crusade, now there wasn't much being, the impact that was being done in that area, except for him, that he went there and he achieved whatever purpose that he knew that he was achieving. So whatever that he was doing, as we were just his hosts, we were just his victims. We were just people that he would use to advance himself. So wherever he went, and he would just, if you are for the job, you are innocent enough, he just throws you in. And then when he's done with you, you are useless, you are not listening, you are not connecting to the anointing, you are just something in your head that I don't have words to say it. So that has been my experience of abuse.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Sidiko. We will then quickly ask a few questions so that we get clarified on a few issues. You started off by saying that you are a learned person.
Yes.
You are a scientist.
Yes.
And you never at any point doubted that somebody can deceive a person of letters, so to speak, who understands, who can read, who can analyze, and things like that. And that you went to church, and the purpose of going to church was to serve God. You hunted a spiritual home because you were in one spiritual home. So you hunted for another and you found it. And part of it was the dazzling, what accompanies the ministry, the coziness, and things like that. And of course, the curiosity to want to know the interpretation of the Word of God. If I ask the question that faith is not blind.
It's not blind.
Faith.
It's not blind. Okay.
Yeah. Faith is reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Faith is not blind. What would you say?
If you tell me that faith is not blind, I would agree with you that faith is not blind. When you are having faith, like as I said, I used to look around, and because one can't just walk in blindly. Even when I got to church, I remember there were two people. Somehow people followed me because you are being put there on YouTube during services. Sister, are you now at this church? We saw you there. So the curiosity of seeing me there, this other families, there's two families, they called me and said, give us the address, we want to come and fellowship. And they ended up staying. And one of them at the time, I remember he asked and said, but my sister, this prophet, sometimes we hear stories about them. This one, what are we going to do when we hear some stories about him and everything? And then I answer him, I said, my brother, for now, as I'm here, I'm checking the environment. You are also checking, isn't it? That's why you're asking me this question. We are reading, the Bible, and we don't see anything strange. But I assure you that when that time comes, and then we see that there's something wrong, we need, the first responsibility that we have is to God, not to human being. We would then walk away from here. But for now, I don't see anything. And having said that to him, now when I have left church, we are having a conversation with him now, because when he saw me stopping coming to church, he looked for me and wanted to hear the reasons why I'm not coming. And then I remind him of that conversation that we had. I said, remember we had a conversation, but at that time we knew nothing. This was just, church, because it wasn't just walking blindly. That's why I said, if I don't know, I didn't. Witchcraft inside church for me was just a word that I knew there would be witchcraft somewhere. That's why I was like, faith is not blind. Even when you walk in there, I was thinking to myself, if there's something that's not right here, when we are praying to God, when we are reading the Bible and reading it for myself, not having the next person to read it and explain it to me all the time, which I would have failed myself if I would say I was not reading it for myself, then it was something else. But it was an environment where when you are in there, something that takes hold of your mind, hold of your senses, hold of your being, that even when you are doing the things that are normal, it's not the things that are normal towards what normality is. It's the things that are normal towards a certain individual who knows what the agenda for the place is. Such power in I think at the back of my mind, because even as I was reading, I used to read and think, because some of the books that I was reading, which this prophet at some point, he confronted me and said, yeah, you know too much. You have read books and books written by Nigerians, and when you are here, you are not even receiving what you came here for, because you are full of information. You need to take out what you have in your mind. You need to empty yourself so that you can receive. Yeah. He said that to me. Yeah. So faith, Papa, I agree that is not blind. So I was in an environment where I still kept to what I know. I was opening my eyes, but in that they got blinded.
Okay. Now, if faith is not blind, and faith reasonable, it's reasonable, which you agree with me. Is there a distinction between a church of witchcraft and a church of Jesus Christ?
You will only know once you are inside there, because all when you are outside, you think this is a church of witchcraft and the church of Jesus Christ.
Now, from your experience,
yes.
What you are saying to us now, would you say there's a church of Jesus Christ? Remember, you came from
Yes, I came
church.
from somewhere, yes.
Would you say your experience has led you to what is allegedly a church of witchcraft from the church of Jesus Christ?
Yes, there are such churches. They exist.
No, I'm not saying churches.
We're
talking about a particular church now.
Yes.
What would you characterize or describe this church to be with your own experience?
Because it's a church of witchcraft. Okay. It's not a church of Jesus Christ. And what it paraded from outside, it paraded like a church of Jesus. Until when you are in, because even what kept us for 5 years in the church, slowly you got into something that you can't, to trace it back, it wasn't easy.
Now, from what you said now, what are the things that are characteristics of church, what is it now, the church of witchcraft?
A church of witchcraft, Commissioner, we were kept there too long hours than you can. When you went in the morning and when you come back in the evening, you spend your whole day there. But the things that have happened, they are so too much to make sure that your mind doesn't even recall every single thing that happened to you in that thing. That is the number one thing that happened that was different even from the church that I went in before, or churches that I've been before, that where I came out, I was not destroyed like the way I am. It is the length of time that you spend there. The excessive laying on of hands. This hand comes in on your head. When you wake up from the floor there, it's like there's just you were here. Like if you were to ask me, where were you standing? I would say I was standing there, but I found myself standing here, and I cannot even account how I'm now standing here. Yeah. But when you ask me, where were you? I was there. And oh, were you there, but you are here now, what's happening? I don't know. That would be the answer I give you. And it happened to me.
If somebody says, well, you were standing there, now you are here, it's a miracle. How would you account for that?
It's not a miracle, because after that hand came in most of the time what I saw happening to me, even when I would fall, it is when Prophet would come into the environment, and he always has his people, that he makes sure that he didn't leave the service without laying his hands on you. That one he makes sure. Even when you don't register for the prayer line, where you are like, today I need prayer for something that is not, maybe I'm not well or anything, he would make sure that he prays on you, because it was his way of always working on us. So in a church that is not of Jesus, you are always targeted to make sure that this one, I don't know if the how do I put it, his hand, he knows that once that hand has been there, you are going to be following what he says to you. You are going to be following instructions. You are going to be doing what as he tells you. That's what I have seen.
So these things of following what he does, and of falling down, the holy laughter, the messy walk, all of these things happen in this environment.
Yes, they happened.
So they change you allege they change the behavior of the people.
The majority of people, and the majority of people, that's why he knows who the victims are. It's like when you come in that space, you are a visitor. He won't start with you. He still has to study you, maybe, perhaps I would say that. But when he comes into the service, and then he knows that there's me here, there's that person, because he knows of the amount of work that he has already done to destroy us. Then he comes to that person, and then he knows that once I've started with this one, with the laying on of hands, half of the church is down already. So he can work on the other ones that he will work on.
Commissioners, and other commissioners that are
There's no one there.
Just check if they're still there.
I just want to find out something. Why did you leave the previous churches?
It wasn't reasons of running away from church. It was as a result of, at one point I stayed in a different area. I moved from Johannesburg to Pretoria. So as I moved from Johannesburg to Pretoria, I couldn't go to the previous church where I was. I needed to get a church that was close to me. That was the one reason. And then after that, I got married. I was in my husband's church, where he was fellowshipping. So when we were in his church, also when we were there, it was at a time where in a church, when we found, like when I came in there was already, I was received well. I was identified also as one of the leaders who would help inside church. And the reason I would be identified as one of the leaders, I'm a person that I see something needs to be done. I would not expect the next person to do it if I can do it. So I would do it. Then I would go. I remember, so in his church, the people that I found there was a thing that other people that I found there, they felt that I was used more than them whom I found inside church. You know, they felt that they were needed. They were the ones who were existing pastors. I was not even a pastor, but I was doing more in the church, and it threatened them. So our relations with them, as much as it was in the fighting environment and anything, it was no longer, you know, I was coming, when we were still dating, it wasn't that environment now that they were receiving me. And then I said, it's going to cause problem for us, because I see how now my presence is making other people to feel, because now the pastors are relying on me to do this and this. Maybe it will be better if we were in an environment where we start afresh, you know, the two of us in a church. And we were also planning at the time, we're now moving from Pretoria, now coming back to Johannesburg, and the church was in Randburg. So we're like closer to where we were, we will find a church. So those were the reasons for the movement.
Just a couple of other things that I'd just like to focus on. So you come into this new church, you get recognized and everything. I'm just trying to understand the dynamics between you and the prophet on what he's looking for in people.
Yes.
It seems as if you were the type of person that enjoyed being helpful. Is that your personality?
Yes, that's my personality. You are right, Commissioner. That's my personality. Like as I said, if I'm in a space, I see something that can be done, I will not wait for the next person. And in that environment, it was an environment that when you see something, don't wait to be asked. It is our home. We are, it's a new church. We are starting. There are so many needs. So there are so many hands needed that could do things inside churches. So it was really not even an issue for me when I see something that I would offer
would
to
you say that,
to do it.
How big was the congregation, by the way?
The congregation, it was there was always influx of people coming in and out. But on it, when we had the tent, when we were moving inside into the building, the tent was already full, which it was more than 100 people at that time, which was a sign of a growing church. And then we got in there. I know that on a good day, it would be more than 200 people. It kept on growing. But in this whole thing, there used to be up and down fluctuation of people coming in and not coming. That's when you will be like, but you also need to put in structures and strategies of how do we retain people, because many people are coming, but they don't permanently stay for whatever reason that was not known to us. So a church would come some Sundays, 300 people, I would say, because the hall was big. The new structure that it was big, and then there were times when it would get full, 300, 400, because he had built that for 500 people.
But the permanent, your permanent membership, each church has like a permanent membership.
The permanent membership, I would say it was more than 200 on a normal.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, out of that 200, how many were really active within the church, like what you were doing and that sort of thing?
In the active, and this is now where the front structure you find, it was even the people that will come and testify after me. It was the pastors. Like he would put pastors, he would put disciples, he will put the department leaders and everything. So there in the front you find that the initial target to have the disciples, it was 12. We would be 12 that now you are in permanent leadership positions there. It would be the 12, and then in the background, then there's in this other department, it will be different people. So let's say out of that 200 people, you would find that there were 30 people that are reliable, that that on a Sunday, you would not miss this one's face. If you missed this week, next week they are there, and they are also the financial support. Because even he used to group us. They were partners, they were disciples. So in those groups, those committees, when you see, that's where you would see that, okay, the tithers, out of these 200 people, there are at least 50 people that will tithe continuously. You met them in the tithers meeting, you met them in the partnership meeting, because he used to have those meetings which you would say those are for the people that were his financial supporters. So during the week now, you are in those meetings.
So those 12 disciples that he had, would they always be people of means and that were
yes.
there?
If you didn't have money to that guy, it's like I don't know what is the word that you will. The moment you start, if I, like now, I don't have money, he doesn't want me close to him. I failed myself, I failed God, I became disobedient, I didn't connect to the anointing. So whoever is next to him, and he will even tell you that when you are serving him, you need to have money, because prophets, they don't carry money. So if he wants something, like when he made me to do those seminars, if he sends you on something, like when he sent me to go and organize the Potchefstroom crusade, on that, it's my petrol, it's my car. If I needed to print pamphlets, I need to print them there. Whatever that needs to be paid in that space, when you call him and say, this has to be paid, he doesn't answer his phone, he's nowhere. He would say he would give money after, and that money doesn't come back. And you are also in this space that when he comes back, you can't say, I've paid for this and this and this, and I'm expecting money back. So he always wanted people that he knew that they are paying. So out of all those 12, it was rare that if you didn't work, if you were not a business person, if you were not a professional, even there, that is why he started having the partnership, the tithers. He would give attention to those people. That's how he put it. He gives attention to people that are giving money at church.
Now, if you look at your previous church and this church, and what was happening in the leadership in that previous church, we're used to churches where you have deacons and all these sort of things.
The most healthiest church that I have seen, it is that one where there's a pastor, there are deacons, there's financial committee, there's financial statements. I was in a church where every year, February, every member of the church, you come, and then when you come, it's this meeting. Even if you don't understand the financials very well, I'm not a financial person, they are displayed there, they are there on the website, whether I was taking out 5 rand or 2 rand. But it's part of that whole, so much was collected throughout the whole year for January to February, and so much was used towards this is what is in there. It happened, and those were the most, there wasn't abuse. I've stayed in that church for 9 years when I was first, before I moved to Pretoria. I was in that church. It was in Soweto. I used to go in there, and in every meeting in February, I even would diarize it. But they were clear, there was transparency. And where I found in the church where I was in now, that I said I suffered financial abuse, there was never, not even in a single day, that there's accountability, that so much has been collected and so much has been used. That is why even in my senses, I went with this document that I drafted. I said, but there needs to be financial department. There needs to be structures in this way, so that we don't just every time there isn't accountability.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Morning.
I just wanted to check, how was the hierarchy of the church like? I heard talking about the disciples and the pastors, and what qualifies people to be called disciples or pastors?
There was, in this whole thing, Prophet was the leader, the founder, the decision maker. So when he puts you to be a pastor and a disciple, for him, he would look at, it wasn't how spiritual I was. It was, I have money and I can give something, and I'm somebody that other people will respect. And he would use me to hide behind me, that when somebody is a member at church, I was supposed to get information on them. How are they doing financially and everything? If they are sick, if they are not well and everything. And then I pass the information to him. So he put the structures so that he makes sure that any information that was happening down there, it was just filtering through to him. He can monitor anyone along those lines, because every month you give him report. Like the commissioner asked me about the previous church where I was a leader there, and then as a cell leader, the report that I used to give at church, we used to have weekly meeting. I would report on things that I'm not reporting on your absenteeism, on your issues, because whenever you had issues, we would be a community that as they put me there as a cell leader, my relationship, as long as it wasn't something that was outside the values of church, it was to build a healthy relationship with the next person, and as a community they're helping each other. So there was not even in one day that I would be reporting that on a person. I would report that we had our meetings, we started at 7, these were the teachings we had, we were given guidelines, but we would talk over and above the guidelines of what we were given. So that's what I would report. But in his church, I even remember I told him that, and I said, here where we are reporting on people's issues, it's difficult, because some people, they don't want to open up to me, they only want to open up to the prophet. I think there's something wrong with this structure. But he heard me, and nonetheless, but because he knew when he hears something and then he knew the purpose of what he was achieving, he would just dismiss it in a way. Because I was one of the people that I said to him, and many other people would say, this reporting thing is not working. So he would put us there so that information always on PEP, because you would report on a person. How are they working? What improvement are they making in their lives financially and everything? Those were the type of things that he was interested in. It wasn't on like, as I said in the other church where I was, you report on the teaching, you report on the community projects that we did, that we visited ex-families, if there was a funeral or anything. Those were the type of things that I was reporting. And in his church, it was just the scapegoat, or the answer always given. It was like, we are starting out, so we're forever starting out. These things would improve with time. But what was happening with time was there wasn't much improvement. He will put structures that he knew that they were serving his needs, not the needs of the community of the church. I would put it that way. That has been my experience.
Okay.
So your reporting structure within the church, his main premise for those reporting structures was to hear of members in the church that were doing well and that were increasing their income.
Yes, because even if you were to report of someone that is not doing well, they have challenges, they are not working or anything, he would not come back to you and say, okay, this is the aid that I'm giving to this person in this way, let me meet up with them in this way. He would not. Even the people that they would be receiving some food parcels from him at any given time. I would have a person in my group who doesn't have food, but when it's time for him to give food parcels, it will not go to this person that I've reported that this person doesn't have anything. It will just go to the community that people that are not coming to church, so that he's seen that he's doing something and more people must be coming to church.
Okay. Let's get to the financial abuse. You and your husband,
yes,
went to this church, and your assessment of the man after your visit was that he looks like a good prophet. Nohal, he is a South African. Then I think let's support him for the work of God, which I think is a good value system. You were driven by faith, and you were driven also by the fact that the work of God must continue. Yeah, that's right. Now, after interacting with the church and the leader, I suspect both you and your husband are professional people.
yes.
Did you discern after maybe 6 months that what we saw at first does not seem to be the same? What do you call reading the character?
Reading the
Ability to
character.
read character.
Yes.
Was your reading of the character okay? Yeah.
When we got there, the first 1 year, like as when you're asking me what happens in this witchcraft church when I say they keep you busy, he kept us busy. I was expectant, I had a child. He was most of the time, he would go to work, from work he goes there to church, he comes back, it's late. So when he comes into your system, you don't even have your own time as a family. Your time when you are his victim, You would go to your work, come back to your work, go to church. When he would come back, when he comes back, it's 1 o'clock. When I went on the times when we go for meetings, it's late. So even at that time, you don't have time to sit and say, it is a busy environment, it is a small church, it is a growing church, there are so many needs. So the whole thing from him to can thoroughly and say, this is what is happening. He makes sure that he bombards you with
work.
Yes, with
Okay.
work.
Okay, thanks. Did you know that your husband was about to take his pension, or it was at his behest that your husband should leave his work and become a pastor?
It was him. Never in any point was he going to leave.
To leave his work?
Yes, he was not. So when he comes and brings it to the table for us to talk about it, it is when he has already told him that this is God's view and this is what he needs to be doing. And it is at that very time that he had warned him and said to him, don't tell your wife everything. This one is being used. You know,
who's being used? You?
Me, yes. He tells him
against
my husband. He says he would say that he normally refers to the demons as these things. When he says you have these things coming upon you, you have demons coming upon you, the devil is using you. So he already says to him that much of what he needs to be discussing with me, he needs to be cautious because I'm work in progress. I'm a good person, but there's still a lot of work that has to be done on me.
You?
Yes, on me. Him, he's ready. Okay. He's a servant of God, so he needs to push in order so that he can take the family forward.
Okay. Do you believe in devils and the spirits? Do you believe in them?
The devils and the spirits, I believe in them when you know, a person will be prayed for and then there's this, all of a sudden a person is not themselves, there's another tone of voice talking, there's these things. So I would identify this as demons. You know, I believed in when I would see that act. Yes.
But can somebody use this to intimidate you, to make you afraid?
That you have, for the most part, when I was there, when he was saying, you know, even myself, there was a time when I said, he's seeing something that I don't know about myself. When he says I have demons, maybe him, because he would say he's the prophet, he's got spiritual eyes and everything. There came a point whereby even myself, I wanted to see these demons that he's talking about that are in me. I wanted to see them out. And for the rest of these 5 years that I was there, he would come and talk. Witchcraft out, nothing. There was nothing talking, there was nothing coming out.
You didn't experience having this?
I would, when he comes, like as I said, this excessive laying on of hands that he comes, he knows also what is in his hands. His hands, he knows that when he puts on you, you are going to fall, you are going to jump, you are going to, there's an action that would happen. So those were about the things that would happen to me. But these demons that I was waiting for, because he said in this whole thing, he even told me that I have those demons. And when he was telling me that I was having the demons, it is when I said the person that I brought to church, he calls me and said she needs to leave from work, and I'm the stumbling block that's making this one not to leave, because I was against it. I used to ask her and said, something doesn't make sense, you know, of what you are telling me. So she went back and reported. So at that time when she went back and reported, then Prophet Samuel calls my husband now and say, because he was also now trying to make him aware that I've been telling you all along that your wife has got these things. Now she's blocking this one from leaving work. So now he calls, it was 1 a.m. in the morning, and then I ask, where's your wife? And then my husband brings me the phone, and then he says that I need to stop what I'm doing. And I'm thinking, what is it that I'm doing? And then he says, God is angry at me for what I'm doing.
I'm the prophet.
Yes, I'm standing on the way of his work.
You are with your husband.
Yes, I'm with my husband.
In your home.
In our home, yes.
And then he calls.
Yes, he calls.
Then he says, you are standing between
Yes, because the lady that I had brought to church,
Okay.
he had told her to leave and resign and go and stay at church and take all the money and bring it.
Okay.
And he used to say that is the Church of Acts. We need to live like the Church of Acts and then bring everything to church. So when she tells me that, I was trying to talk sense to her head.
But did this woman give her money too?
She did, yes.
She gave her money as well.
Yes,
Now she was expelled from the mission because she was now poor.
dry, yes.
She was
She
dry.
she lost her car, she didn't have a place to stay. She was now an outcast.
Okay.
And when that happens, no one would even come to your aid in that environment and say, it was now me and her. And me, part of it at the time, it was like, I was feeling guilty and accountable. We came here to church now.
Okay. Now
This is what happens
now,
to
when
you.
when I wanted to focus on the financial abuse,
Yes.
you received the money. This is pension money.
Yes.
Did you have a plan, you and husband, how to use this money?
We had a plan, yes.
What was the plan?
When I left now, the plan was to change from the business that we were doing and focus on the business that would give us more money.
No, I mean your
To
husband.
buy the equipment, yes.
Your husband is about to receive the pension.
Oh, yes. Oh, you are talking about
Yeah,
me
yeah.
now.
He's
Yes.
about to receive the pension. You and your husband know you're expecting money.
Yes.
Did you have a plan about what to use this money for?
Yes, we had a plan.
Okay.
And the plan did not materialize.
Why?
The money, he paid it to church. And
So
when
the money got into his account.
Yes.
He transferred the money into.
Some of it he transferred, some of it he took cash.
Okay.
The money, most of the time when you give him money, it will not be everything that is EFT. He was not a fan of EFTs. The money has to come so that it goes as for him to
Now,
bless.
for example, if you give him cash, there is no proof.
Yes, he knew that.
There is no proof.
And we also knew that. But the teachings that he tells you that your money, it's for you in order to receive a blessing. This is money that has to come into my hand so that I bless it. So even as you are giving EFT, be careful that the money that you bring, as your sacrifice, as your seed, as your, most of it needs to come in cash. That is what he would do, because I remember that was our first conflict that we had, and I said, I don't understand this cash thing that went to, that goes to church, because money when you give, at least you need to have a paper trail of what you have given. So it was now those teachings that when they are coming, so you're like, okay, and it has already happened. And a part of what happened on our plans, he couldn't expand on the business because we needed to buy, we were in construction, we needed to buy more equipment. He ended up now not being able to buy more equipment that he needed to use on the construction side. So the money now that was coming to him was now limited. So the whole purpose of what, because we were already a foot into the business as we were working. So the plans as what was going to happen, they were clear in that sense. It wasn't like we'll see when the money comes what we're going to do. We had those plans. So by the time I talk to him and say, how's the plans going? And then he's telling me that I can't afford to buy more machinery, and this is what has happened. It caused depression and conflict.
Okay. What will be the message to other people?
The message to other people, Commissioner, I don't even know if I would go to church for the rest of my life. And I know it's not right. But I don't think I would even let myself go to be abused again. That to the next person, I don't even know to say to the next person. What I would say to the next person, if you are in a church that is a church of God and you haven't been abused, you are a whole person, you are functional, stay there. If you find yourself in a place that you needed to do these moves that I had to do, just stick with the Bible, read it, pray on your own, the best way you know how to pray, because I believe God can reach us at any level, at any language, whoever you are, wherever you are, without any mediator or anything. Somebody that comes and say, I hear from God. I used to read the Bible and I saw those scriptures. That's why I said, I used to read. And even when I read them, I would be like, I saw in the Bible where in the book of Jeremiah, there were scriptures written that God said, these people are talking on my behalf, I didn't send them and stuff. This, for me, it was in the context of Bible, at that time. I didn't think that at this day and age, you would find a person that would have such evil heart to go and destroy others like that. I didn't, in my mind, it was not something that you can use God, you can use the word of God, you can use the Bible, you can use a church setup that when you walk in here, and in that place, it's not only us that were fellowshipping there, that we're going, people that are members of the public, you get invited there, that even if you are not a member of this church, you can partner with a growing vision, you can partner with what God is doing, you can take one project here, put your money here. So it is all a money-making thing that it doesn't even reach us. It wasn't just for us who were there, it was for other people. So I would say to someone, before you put your money where they say there's God, ask yourself, is that really God? Or are you wanting to feel that you did something? And if that's how you wanted to feel, but make sure that it is not at the expense where at the end of the day you are worse off than when you came into that space. But as for walking into church, I don't think for the rest of my life, Commissioner, I don't know, even my kids that I'm raising, I don't know what I will tell them about church. I'll just tell them it's a scary place. When you go there, they talk about God, but there's another God. And that other God, it's a God that destroys, and that's a God that I think in my thinking, I didn't think that from the pulpit you would find people raising hands and saying, I'm a man of God, I'm anointed, I speak the word of God, I speak Jesus. And yet I read even in the Bible, there's another Jesus, there's an Antichrist. That whole subject, it wasn't a subject that I would neglect, but I just knew that in checking from my history of church, I just knew that in a church, it's a place of comfort, it's a place of love, it's a place of worship, it's a place of fellowship. It wasn't a place of distraction. It wasn't. So I would just say to the next person, where you are, if you have found that you are in a good and a true church of God, stay there. If you find yourself in a different place, stay to the God that you know. Cut people, whatever that they tell you. I said to myself, some of the things that I have done, I'm like, I don't know if I'll be living in rebellion, but the pain, the hurt, the anger, the frustration, the stress, the humiliation of what I went through, I believe God has seen it. And He would not held it against me in any way if for some reason I turn out now not to. I believe in me, the values that I withheld in me, that what was somehow, because as I grew up, something was implanted in me. And that something it centered around God. I just knew it was centered around God. I think that I would still held, I would not be angry, bitter, and want to now destroy other people. But I think from my experience, because from last year, that's when I could put words to my pain. I would stand up, this Bahlakwana, because he calls him Samuel Paul Heaven. Him, if I meet him, the day when he was talking and calling me a witch and everything, I didn't want to talk to him. But if I meet him in any space, anywhere, I will tell him he's an evil person. I will tell him the evil he has done to my life, the evil he has done to other people, the evil he's standing to do to other people. And as for his church, it is not a church that should be standing, because it's a church that's going to destroy other people. It is a monument for the devil that's going to destroy future generations. And I would not want my kids to walk into that place. So him, anytime I see him, I would confront him. His wife, anytime I see her, I would confront her, because she pretended like, on the times, Commissioner, when Samuel wanted something from you and he would send the wife would call, daughter, I want you to do this and this and this and this. And these were people that were much younger than me. But for me, I was not checking age. I was checking, the work of God, the place that we're in. I would give respect, I would give whatever that I had to give. And he knew that what they were doing with the husband. And I say this out of saying this because even after everything, I came out of that evil hypnosis or whatever blanket that he had put on us, I realized that he used to hide. He used to say to us, you who have met me, you are a remnant. You are just a few people that God is using. There are many evil people out there. And he knew the evil people, that he was part of them. But he would come to us and pretend like, you are safe in my hands. It's like your victim, you know that I'm going to kill you, but I want you to have so much of trust in us. Because the other people that were doing things, like as I said, I knew what was happening around it, that somehow there were people that were also destroying other people. But for them, it was an obvious sign. You come in, people are eating snakes, you know. And then he will come and say, no, these people are used, and this, and this, and this. And then now at the end of it all, you realize he was part of them. They were his friends. He was hiding them. He was hiding this whole thing. It was an operation that was well planned.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam. We really appreciate your effort to open up to us. The allegations from your statement, we will be testing them against the Prophet, who will call him here to give his side of the story, because it's important to hear both sides.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can go. Thank you. The water. Okay.
Can you sanitize?
Where is the sanitizer? Is it outside?
No, she will sanitize here. Sanitize all the outside. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I wanted us to, commissioners, to monitor time, because at 3:30, the media is filing. That's why I wanted to start with those that are appearing on the. So if those come later, it's okay. But I wanted to make sure that by 4, before 4 o'clock, in fact, 3, because you can, then the media can file.
Okay.
Is it?
Sorry about
Good night.
Sorry about coming like I wasn't
Convey?
Eh?
Hey,
I wasn't informed.
okay.
Sorry. Switch it off first. This was very enlightening. No?
Yes?
This was very enlightening.
Very educated.
Yeah.
Very educated.
Very.
Yeah. You needed this. You needed this.
It opens up a lot.
Okay, come, madam. Dumela mme Lerato. Se Lerato?
Iphindile
Phindile.
Mlojo.
Number 6.
I don't have that there. I
Number
don't have number
6.
6. I don't have number 6. I have number 5.
Is she on camera?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You can go live with her.
Phindile Mlojo, ne?
Eh.
Okay. Thank you so much. You are also in the camera. Will be in the camera. Thank you so much for coming. My name is David Musomo. I'm the chair of the commission. And next to you is the deputy chair, Dr. Petu. And then on my right, it's Advocate Water, also a commissioner. there are 3 commissioners on that system there. Commissioner Skuman, Commissioner Adorov, and Commissioner Gamzache. So they will also be participating with us today. Of course, the media are present here. Thank you. They're taking time to really honor us to make sure that we educate South Africa. So it's about education in the main. Advocate, can you now do the swearing?
Hi, I need to swear you in accordance with Section 7 of our Act. What would you prefer, a solemn affirmation or an oath? Oath is before God, solemn affirmation is before your own conscience.
No, oath is before.
Before God. If you can please stand and raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I,
No.
your name,
Tindile Anamlojo.
do hereby swear
Do.
Ki kana hore.
to tell the truth,
Ki tlo bua nnete,
the whole truth,
nnete fela.
and nothing but the truth.
Ntle le tse ngata nnete fela.
So help me God.
So ntate Modimo nthuse.
Thank you very much. You may be seated.
Amen.
Very good. You broke the linguistic barrier.
Yes.
Very good. Utabua kas
That's good.
Sesotho.
Thank
O ka ntsha mask wa gago mme
you.
o bue o lokologile rena re tla kenya mask wa rona.
Thank you.
Do you think when she speaks on a mask she can be heard, ne?
Very difficult.
It's difficult.
It's difficult.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got to be.
Okay. All right. O ka bua.
Jeka se ke buile ka lebitso ke nna Phindile Anamlojo. Ke tswa ke le ko Steel Park ko Vereeniging. Nakong ya hona jwale ke widow e nang le bana ba bararo. So ho latsahala ka 2016 ke fihle sebakeng se neng ke hloka Modimo ka sona ka nako eo
2015.
16. Ke ne ke le metse ka hare le bana kaofela. Ho sena ntho e kopanang bophelong ba ka mara ka hopola hore ntho e ke mo hlokang nakong eo ke Modimo. Mme nna le bana kaofela re le ra fumana sebaka se le meya thono e le hore
Sorry, where is the
My dear.
to interpret? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, for him. Yes.
So should I get closer?
Yeah, just
Yeah. No, it's all right. Just be there. Okay. Okay, Jonathan.
e le hore ka mora tseo kaofela tsa ho lahlehelwa ke molekane e le ra lahlwa ke batho bene re nahana hore ba tshepile le rona ba maloko. So ra fumana hore motho re mo hlokang ke ntate Modimo sebakeng se ka nako eo. Ya ba nna le bana re fumana kereke hobane la tsejwa ke moshimane hobane ona ke na Valtech. Ya ba ke yena na ntsa attenda he ho fihlela re be re mo sala morao. Re ile ra fihla kerekeng ra nna ra attenda kereke ke nnete kaofela le bana kaofela ho fihlela ka nako ya selemo sa 2018 ha ntse re le kerekeng moo No, I think it's 2019, sorry. 2019, Hans really kerekeng, e be le gore ke nako ya gore mora a graduate. Ke nnete ke le ka kgona gore ke mo etsetse ntho tse ke tlhokang go mo etsetsa tsona. Jwalo ka hane ke mo jwetsitse gore ke tlo kopa gore bana ba ka kaofela ba leng ba fumana tšhelete ya ntate wa bona le beye tšhelete. Jwalo ka ha ntse ke le teng ke ne ntse ke kgona go support-a, ke kopa gore ha le so sebetse le lo beya ditšhelete tsa lona, le se ke la sebedisa ditšhelete tsa lona gobane ke mme ke ntate ka ga ntlo.
Yes.
So ka moga di-graduation sonta sa teng fela re ya kerekeng gape ka selemo seo sa 2019. Ha ntse re le ka kerekeng SABC le ono, so bane hangata nna ne ke rata ho dula pele kwana, and then bona ba ka morao nna ntse ke shebile screening se ke bona yena man of God a sa phamisa moraka. Ke ipotsa e bo sona le eng ntšhaetsahalang ka yena bophelong mohlomong. Ha phamisa mora phamisa le kgaitsedi engwe ka kerekeng, a hlalosa ka mokgwa modimo a reng mosadi wa hao kone o tshwanetse go nyala motho.
Ke mang o ke mo?
Ke mo
O phahamisa moraga?
o emisitse moraka pele.
A emisa le mo?
A ba emisa le kgaitsedi a mo jwetsa gore ke mosadi e modimo a reng a monyale. O nnete ho nna ela ka bataba e nngwe e ke bonang ke sa e thabele, although kaofela batho ba ne ba le ka kerekeng ba le ba thaba ba etsa melodi, but ho nna e ne se plan ya ka le bana ba ka le mora. Hobane ne ke na le plan ka bona hore ke tshwantse a thole mosebetsi, a sebetse, a tsebe ho sebetsa ka thata ke impile, a tlo tatela dintho tsa go tshwana le tseo, a ba etse le di-BTech ka mokgone re bua ka teng ka tlung, and re utlwane kaofela le bana. So hobane ke motho a neng a sebetsa ka lemo tseo, ne ke ka kereke mohlangwane le mohlangwane he hobane ka disonta tse ding ke theohetse. Ho boetsahala hobane mora o la fumana in service Rustenburg. Ngwana ha ntsa le Rustenburg ha tla a re tjhaketse ka dintho ka di-off, ke mo a njwetsang gore profete o itse ke lo ntsha mahadi. Ke re eng o ntsha mahadi jwang? O so tsebana le motho o se le kopane. Ke re hai ka bona etsa dintho tsa ka pele ko hobaneng a ka imama ke tsebe. Hai le teng ya nna ba pela ile ho nna ka bona ke sa ithabele. Mara ka lebaka la gore bana ke bana, ene o ipolelletse hore bana ke bana ba hao, le wena bohloko be ba fetileng go bona ha o batho ba khutsetsa paining e nngwe. So re se ka le mora ke nahana gore nna ntse ke ya kerekeng ke tla thola kholo ka potla mpitsa a njwetse diqeto tseo na hona ha o bui next ke ithulele nenne mora hatla mama o mpha bokae jwale ke re ko fa bokae ka thusira se ka ntho ene o tlo kopelwa ke bomang a ke go tseba ho ntso le tense ka mahlakoreng ntle le gore ke lo jwetsa bopti ba ka Mpumalanga ebe bona batlang le wa malome he ka Shaville aga wizona le bontate ba tla ba roma ke bontate ba tla ba roma jwang ba o tsebella kae batho ba ha se batho ba hedi batho ba okay great. Ke re o roma batho ba bang jwang ntho tsa manyalo se ntho tsa o bapala ke re ntho tse di na le ditso di-culture ntho tse ka reng tse o kaofela. Hai ke fumane gore moga jwale o ye mahlogo gobane o batla go phethisa ntho ya profete. Ke re okay ke kopa gore ka letsatsi leo le a le jwetsitseng wena a sa le jwetsa nna ke tlo fa 10,000 fela. A ke ga o tsebe lo batliwa bokae mo a ga mama ke tsebe ke re good ke nnete re qeta le ngwanaka ke be ke mo fa tšhelete kana ka 10,000 o lo kopana le batho ba o kae a ga o thule for ena kgeng okay still ha ona kholo ke nang ona ha ona message ha ona next wa go ke tsebiswe ke ithuletse jalo ka motswadi ngwana o tsamaile o ile mo ha fitla mo a kopane le bontate ba babedi le bona ba reporte ho moprofeta ga re kopane le Kenneth a go tshwere bokae nka re ba mo hlalosetse a ga tšhelete e nyane e ga iketse tšhelete ke nnete ngwana ha tlameya go jwale a lo etsa ntho tse seng a tshaba gore o kgutlela go nna jwang goba nona le access ke nnete tšhelete ne le ya hae a bile a kena dibankeng a etsa ntho tseo tsa di entseng tse neng ke sa di bone ke le siyo ba ile a di etsa ntho tsa bona a lo ntshuwa magadi ha a kgutla ke re ao se le qetile a re a mphe lengolo a lengolo ke bale ke re hao tšhelete kana jwale ho etsahetseng a ga profeta la re tšhelete o mphileng yona e nyane ke lo e eketsa ke re mago o eketsa ka tšhelete kana hai ke sala ke maketse nna ke re and then ha ka re ne le batho ba utlileng le bona fela ba ha bo mme o ba ne ba le kae he bo rangwane le bo malome a ga mama nna ke tsebe
bona a patetse bokae
o ne ntse 40,000 ile go no ba twa 50,000 ya ba yena ntsha 40 go ba ningo tswe le lengolo mo ke nnete ka mokgwa ke tsebang bophelo ke ile ka utlwa bohloko haholo le dikgaitsedi ke a di kwatile bile se di sa batle go bua le yena so sona le tension ka ntlo ke re ha sena kwa go tlo kwatelana le tseba hantle go ntwela ne le ntlo ya khotso ntate wa mola le ntate wa khotso so ya go le tlo dula le kwatetse ngwana bo lona ha se yona re le ka go ikhutlisa ba le nna inenja ke le mong but ke sa batle go bontsha bana gore ntwena ha ka e thabela e itseng ya ba ntseng kutlwisa bohloko mehla le matsatsi ha ke nahana mo ke nahanang hore ke a lebala ka yona ke batla go itlwaela mohlomong ke mo a tholang kholo a ntse le Rustenburg pele ho mo mahadi a ntshitswe sa treta ka Mantaha mme motswadi wa kgaitsedi a kena sepetlele moga a khutla njwetsa gore mme wa ausi ho sepetlele ke re hao ke angel a ga ke tsebe ke re ha re tshepe go hlomong ke ntho fela o tla khutla hai be ke ya pele fete kana go se ke kene busy njalo ba nna ntho engwe lengwe ka ke ba njwetsa motlhana le bona ba tseba ke yetsa ka nako ga nako e dumela ke nako ne ke itse ke etsa di renovate ntlo ya diwa jwale ho yetswa ke busy haholo ke ntsha dithuto ka tlung ke mong ka nako e ntho engwe lengwe ke iketsetsa so be ke ya bobedi ba ntse ba feta ba ya sepetlele ke khutle ke botse maphelo mama o ntsa ya jwang wa tsa mama ka shedona le tjena ma re tjena ke ra batho mama khutle hobane ke motho ke mo hlokang hantle ntho o tshwantseng re tlo buisana ka taba e ne e etsahetseng be ke ya boraro still ke ipotse mo ke buwane go bathong le mmebe o kula go le serious na go e kana ka go kene ka nthoenyane ke gawane e be sontaha seo ke kerekeng sontaha ke qeta o pheka le koloi bana kona ba tswang ba banyane ha ke re ke kwala koloi ho so mathile ausi mongwe kerekeng ke a bitswa ke mathe ho sentse ke ha ke nnete ke matha ke phakisa ha ke fitla ke fumane le rata ka moo holla yena ausi le ausi wa ya moholo ausi ona mpisa ngare ho thumi ya bona o sa hloka fitse yo ila ba ntho mkutlisa bohloko le nna ya ntshosa ho ba le lefuki a le tseba ena ho lo jwang la motswadi so ya ba le nna ke maketse fela go jwale ntho e tjena e bitswa eng ha ga ngwana ka keta o kenywa ntho nye kana kana so ya ba dipotso tse ntse ke ipotsa tsona le nna a fitli profete ha fitla bana balla ha ke tsebe ke thudisa o fengwana ha ka so tsebale le bana ha kalo ha ke so ba tsebe ne re tsebala ntse re bona la fela ka kerekeng but ke le ka ba thudisa se ka motswadi a tsebang lefu go lefu la le ka ba jwang la o ka ba o bone motswadi ana kula maka ha sa le siyo monate ona ha o sa leyo go ba bohloko so ya ba ntse ke thudisa bana ka tsedi ke reng ke ba thudisa bana bona o ba bona ba ne le monwana le lenala le motswadi wa bona ha isa le re tseba ke ra ke re ke mo bone ba phela le mme ya bona ba bodisitswe ke mme ya bona a le mo fela se ka nna le yena so ha fitla go ba bitswe bana ha bana ba bitswa go bitswa le nna a ba jotsa ke hantle go lelle ke ntho entle go lelle le fua le monate ke nnete mare he ntho tsena ha le bona ke di entse ka speed tjena ke ka lebaka la go modimo na santsa tsholo gore mme ya lona o tlo tsamaya so ke ka hone ke le batlela mme o mongwe so ya banna ke setse lo maka gobane bonnete ntho tsa dikereke nna ke a di tseba ke hotse ka tsona gae nna mme ona kapela ntate ona kapela heso ne lelapa la thapelo sa le ke bolela di-Uniting Reformed Church dikereke tsena ke ile ka lebaka la mathata ileng a ntlhaela se ke sa tsebe ke tshwara eng ke tloela eng ke makala go maka ntho tse ding di tsamaiswa jwang go gutla ga ka le nna le bana nna ke bona se ba le right ka moga moga he o tla founelwa ena ntho engwe leng ke di-arrangement ke tsa lefu mama go thukilong ka passporto ke re batho okay hape nka se tsamaise ngwana ka le mong ke re le nna ya ka espaile ke ditšhelete hape ga ntsha re etsa di-passport ka speed tseno re etsa ntho engwe le engwe ke ditšhelete tsa gona lesotho o tswa lesotho le batswadi kao fela ba tswa lesotho ha ke fumana go tseba ke la o ka batho go jwang wa ka ngwana hano tsamaya a le mong bonnete ntho mohlaetseng e bohloko ntse ba tla tsheetso le hlakoreng la hae ene ke ena moshemane fela hana botile ke nnete re ya di-passportong re etsa ke ditšhelete di a tswa jwale ke di-eng ke di-arrangement ke di-eng kao fela ntse re etsa ke nagane ke tla utlwa go o mongwe wa bo di-disciple kapo mang he auspindi ho thu koloi e teng kapo batho ba teng ba tlo tsamayang le lona eng nako ena e ntse tsamaya ho na ntho e jwalo e etsahalang ho bo fitlha letsatsi le bona lesotho ke nnete le ema kgwedi kaofela motho a pato e la ba fela ha hona ntho e hlaheng ke utlwa motswa ho prophetess ka ha ke tseba kerekeng e feng le e feng ha le fula setho se hlahile ho etsuwa ntho tseo a ke di utlwa so ntse ngongoreisa taba eo nna ke re mare e le hore ho nkang sebaka ke eng letsatsi le be le fihla re be re tsamaya ne re le ba gago fela le ausi wa ngwanana bane bana ba bang ba banyane ba ne se ba tsamaetse pele moshomong le maloko wa mang a mabedi ba le ona a ntse a spendile ntho engwe le nngwe se ka bona koloi ya bona dipetrole tsa bona ntho engwe le nngwe ga ona ntho e rileng ga utlwa e hlaya go thu ena ke tšhelete e tswang ka ga kereke ka lebaka la gore motswadi o ne a tsamaya kereke monene le bana ba mona ke yona e tla le tsamaisang ya ba nna ke dipotso tse ke ipotsang tsona ka wa tswa ke ka lebaka la mogaka hai ke tla tsheetsa mara ga ka kgotsofala nna ke batle mo utlwisa bohloko bana go fela ngwana a ntlhomphang le yena sa nkutlwiseng bohloko ya ba ke a di etsa ka lebaka la botswadi rile go kgutleng haka ke a theoela ke etsa mara ke na le dipelaelo tseo ke a sebetsa ke etsa mara ke re noma nna ntho ena ha e ntshware hantle ke santse ke tshwere ke eno moga a fitlhe ha a fitlha ka di-offer tsa fitlhang ka tsona a re mama o na le ntho e ke sa o jetsang yona ntho o sa njetseng yona ke embona a re hei profete o la mfounela ke le Rustenburg a re kitle kerekeng and then ha ke fihla kerekeng ke fumana bo mang le bo mang di-disciple tse ding ho entswe tafole ya di-snacks le eng le eng ho etswa lunchnyana eo a ba re a ke go patetse mahadi nka mosadi wa hao o tsamaye le yena ke ntse ke le teng hae dintho se di etsahetse ngwana ka o sa bile a fuwe mosadi nna ke sa tsebe ke le motswadi wa ngwana ka nako eo ha ne ngwana eng servicing ke ne ke le mong ke hopola hantle motho ne ke mokopi ke o ha malome wa Soweto abuti ke na le vene ngwana o thotse in service ene se ba mo jwetsitse gore a tlhatle le dithuto o lo batla pleke ka mo ya o dula ke ena la tswe botsehlabelo a tseba go tseba ke ga itse di iwane ha ona ntate ha ona mang e re ke lo feletsa ga itse o na tle ga tsamaya ka sia ngwana ka zozo mmono di dithuto tse se ke di rekile he kana go ka ofela se ba njetsitse go tshwantsa bona ke a tseba motho lo hira ke frishi ke bethe ke eng ka ofela ke molaisheditse tsona a lo dula ngwana ke sile ngwana ka dula le mong so e ba ntho engwe re isang ke re ha no ngwana ke tseba a hlompha ha kana le banana ne sintho ha eno nna ne soka ke bona le khaitse le ngwana ne ke tseba ona le bona bo sekolong antsa ke na bo valteke ka no thumang ha ba ga gana le khaitse di ya ha batho ne se motho a tla le banana ai a leng na rata buka tsa sekolo ga ta sekolo hana di etsana di tsa pone di fella ko jale ha sa fuwe mosadi ka tsela e teng hai ntho na ya nna nqeta o fihlela nna ka 2020 ke qetela maikutlo ka ke go tseba keng ha ke sa etse e tla ka re ntho na ka ofela nna ke a ithabela e mo profit ona ntsa yetsa ke kopa ntate modimo ka o thema otwaka a ke sa batla ipona ke ile up 59 nka se hlole ke ya kerekeng go dula haka ola tla moa hantsa tla ka di fortnight ena o tla le khaitsedi ba ya ba tlo feta ba kerekeng o thola nna se ke sa itukise se ke sa ikerekeng ha o mama ha o tle kerekeng ke tla kerekeng tsa location ka shavile ka mo ke nnete ban kereke o tlo ikela kerekeng e ngwe le ngwe ha rapelwa ke se ke sa mo ho fitlela he ho tlo hlahela ditaba tsena tse hlayang ha di hlayang ntho tsena tse hlayang ke re nna ke makala le ka mgo ke leng ka bona tello e ngwana ona ana le monyane o thong ke profete ke nnete ma o na ntelle a ska nka ska motho ke tsibonkile ska enna ke ha ke makale ha le bua ntho tse le di buang ka fumana nna telletse bana ba ka a telletse lelapa la ka go ka a ntelletse tje bana ke le mme mohlomong a sena molekane ene a ipolelletse hore ha ile ona wa ha ngwana ba mmaeng ka go sticksnyana tšhelete ne ntata ya mosietsing yona ke tlo etsa make sure hore ke tlo inka ka ofela e fela hobane e etsahetseng ha nna se ke confronta moshimane ke o tseba ga betsahala ntho tse tšeletse tše kerekeng ona sa mokgole ngwana ebile a sa mmamele ho fitlela a ba iponela lena ha se ke mo sendela dintho tse ntse ba re sendela tsona ke re njwetse he go batho bona ba maka he njwetse go ba maka na ke ya ngwana tla fumana hore hai mama wa tseba ntho tse di bua le ka mokgoleng khale ke ntsha ditšhelete mo ke re ao khalo ntsha ditšhelete a re ke re ya mahadi yona nteng ke tshwana ho etsa etseng ka yona a re good question a re nna ke le ka botsa ka tšhelete mahadi ha to yena profete o itse 20,000 hodima 40,000 e tlo me etsetsa altar e tliso kerekeng ke re e tliso kerekeng ka mosadi a o fileng yena a sa sebetseng ene nna ke ratile ngwana wa batho a ye sekolo bane ke a tseba o rata sekolo le wena le nna ke ipoleletse ke batla le bona le ile dikolong hobane nna ke a tseba go sekolo se ke bophelo ka etsa ntho e ratang sekolo se le bona bophelo rona ka sa ba tje rona because rona re le ga mameleng ga ba botlhaleng nna ka ipolella hore ha ke tlo hlolwa ke sekolo ke be ke hlolwe ke bophelo ene modimo na mkutlwi nna a mpha bophelo re ba ha ke batle le tshwane le nna kopa le sekolong so ha nka tšhelete o go dintho di tlo etsa jwang tsa maseko ngwana wa sa sena mme wa hae e tlo ba ntho tse etsiwang jwang a re e mmakatsang o ikopile ka lesaeteng la tšhelete eo mo e setseng mo nkgonyana wa teng a ke re le kgaitsedi wa mme wa sa liwa ke ha kopa tšhelete ha gona re tla kerekeng o go kopa hape ke mo etsetse altar nna ke be ke ntsha tšhelete e kana ka tšhelete ke reka di-tiles tseo ke reka eng officing eo ya hae ke be ke patala le leiba ke re o ntse o reng ngwanaka ke go tseba keng ne ke sa batle go tšho go wena se ke sa batle ya kerekeng eo ne ke di bona ntho tsena mara ne ke tseba gore wena o kgolwa moprofeta nna o ne kgolwa a ba gutla a re wa se gopola selemo sa 2020 ke re ke se gopola hantle ke sona se ne se nyontshetse go feta dintho ka ofela ha o tla thwe ke 2020 ke ena ya tla motho le motho o tshwantshe a ntshe 200,000 le 20 rand 20,000 200 rand 22,000 ka ke ipolelela ke mara gona re hodile re bakana ntho tse tjena re di tsebeng re so ka re di utlwa a mama ke le ka ntsha tšhelete e seng papadi le moo ka go tseba ke tseneng ke di utlwa la no sena motho a njwetsang heo bana ke wena o batla go jwetsa ke prophet but nna maoto wa ka le ka mokgwa le moya wa ka le eng ne se ke sa batle nix ne ke fila gona le ntho e tsahalang ke nnete so ntate ona o elelletswe a bona hantle hore ena ntate wa o sietseng yona e ke itseng ke kopa o e beye ngwana o itshebelletse o lo tseba go sebetsa go sebetsiwa ka thata jwa e re lo sane o ja tšhelete go tseba o ja tšhelete ya matla a hao o ska tlo senya tšhelete so yena o ipoleletse wa enka ka ofela hobane hona mo ha ngwana sa fu an kuwa permanent ngwana sa batla bodulo bo right ke ngwana mpata bodulo bo right ke ngwana batla kole o ntse ka di taxi ola lo se le nna happy ke swantse ke ntse di chelete ke thuse ngwana ka ho ga jole koloi ke mo batla apartment ke ntse di chelete ha so no sna ke to a hlola ngwana ka ke ga ke no yetsetsa eng le nna ke mo batlela bophelo so ke mane mo la fumana hore ha ke sa bue dinnete ho mme wa ka ke tla ke tshepile eng hobane ha e sa le yena a le letlhakoreng la ka ntho e nngwe le e nngwe so ke ntho ke le ka e tshoka re a ho tseba keng ya re di tsamaile dikereke mare tse ding ke tsa mehlolo but ha ona tao nna ntse ke tshepile le ka sheno ga ile modimo o teng and wa phila.
Okay. Ma ja leboga.
Thank you.
Re leboga bopaki ba gago ka mokgwa o ile mo ka botlhoko ka teng mo kerekeng ela.
Sure.
E le gore o ile go kerekeng o batla modimo ka morago ga go ba o molekane wa gago a sebetse.
Sure.
O batla dikarabo o batla thuso mara gomme ka mokgwa o buang ka teng go ra gore wa fumana thuso o fumane
tlhekefetso
ge o thoma kerekeng go thomile morwa kere
go thomile mogwa
a ntse a ya ko sekolong mara le bona a ya ko kerekeng le nona ga go teng le lelaba le nako ya go bua le go tseba moruti wa lena moprofeta o
wa tseba ntho e ke tlo e buang ha o so kene ka kerekeng ko go o etsa make sure gore o mollo mo ka kerekeng o tshwantsha monke le yena mohlomong tate modimo la le tsho leno ha tlwaile se teng ha na le ntho a e batlang ho wena o tla roma di disciple di buele wena ka po wa bitso ka ma hobane nna a neng a dula a mpotsa yona ha mpitsa ba re msebetsing ke ga msebetsing ha ba so re next di tšhelete tsa o so di thotse ke ga ke so tšhelete tšhelete tsa ka ne ba potse ke duleng ke botswa mohleng
a o botsa ka di tšhelete tsa ha
ka msebetsing
okay
mo ke tla fumana ma le ha motho o so o dutse hae o sena income e kena mara o ntse o botswa ka di tšhelete go tsho mona re tlisitse tšhelete ha ga tliswa hore ntho ne re hloka ya moya o halalelang ya eng hobane ntho engwe le ngwe o buang wa utlwa gona jwale gore ke na le cycle ya bana ba keneng sekolo banyana ba ka ba kene sekolo ba ile sekolo ma ba dutse hae ba sebetse ba na le bana ke one ha ke sa sebetsa but still tšhelete o tshwantse nnetswe e ke isang kerekeng ha o dutse hae o seba di-video tsa kerekeng o tlo bona dihampa tse fetang tse tletseng kerekeng ka ofela tse iswang bathong ba bang mo nna ke ipotsang ke ga re le di-video mara ke se utlwile e one video ya kerekeng e re nna ke tliseditswe hampa lockdown ka ofela nna ke hopole tseo ke di bua ke le mong ke ga katabe ke re nna ke kereke be ntse ke nka envelope hape ke khutlela kerekeng eo ka ga tate modimo a e sa le mo ke yang moo e bang ko batla ke nagana go teng le ka ga lapa laka o teng le jareteng yaka ke tla go rapela ka tlong ka moo
bjale o tla re ke eng se se rileng gore o nne ka mo kerekeng from 2016 o fetela 2019 ke
wa tseba kerekeng eno ke nnete ha o ile o kopana le baina o kopana le dikgaitsedi la kopanang kerekeng wa ho shipwa ene ka fumana hore nna ka lebaka la hore ne se ke sena ho kere ke tšhakela ga bontate ke tšhakela mang a kere ke rejectuwe so e ne se le yona life ya ka kereke lelapa e ne le ntho e ke e phelang nna ne ke fumana gore ke lelapeng le letšha le ke ntshang stress sa lene ke nnete ke iphumana gore ntho tse ngata le tsa gore nna ne ke le ka tlong yaka fela ke kena ka more ke olla ga ke bona senepe sa ntate e ne le olla so ntho tseo ka fela di le tsa nna ta kgathea ke fumana gore ga ke khutla ke baebeleng e ne le lona lebaka leo
ke a utlwa tsatsi le moprofeta a ile a emisa morwa gagwe
le ausi.
le ausi.
Eh.
E be ile la mathama o itse sele ka
Ke ne ke sa tsebe nix a ke batla bua mang.
le moraga go hanse a ke a go botsa sele ka taba.
Taba tsena ke di utlwile ha se taba tsena di hlaile. Ke utlwa ka makoti. A re nna he mama ha nka botseba ke nna fela ke ne ke sa tsebe. Kene a re mohlala a qala o mpona santse re kena ka tenteng. Ke yena ana yo moruti a jwetsa moruti gore o a ngata.
Oh, le sokana
ya.
A ro rata gare.
A go rata garebe e le go etsetsa ntho ha ngata ha brisha ka kerekeng wena o ke se tle ho nna o tlo mfrela tshwantse dintho di etsale ha yena a tjho
ko go frela ke molulu
o tlo tshwantse moruti a re modimo o itse monna ha kule.
Oh,
so ha ke se ke ikopanya ke re ngwana ka nna ntse ithathetse ngwana na o a etsa kgetho ya hlompho hore a ye ho prophet go botse ba ke rata gaitsedi ya nete. So yena a fika ka kerekeng o etsa se prophet sa modimo ke engwe ile nya ntena le ho feta dintho kaofela.
All right. Morashu o ya go prophet. O re ke bona
ke khahlwe
yong khatla go ona. Ya le ke mo prophet ka tsatsi leo a le beile o a ba emisa o re ke thato ya modimo.
Ila ga se ke utlwa ditaba he ka ena gaitsedi.
All right.
Ai aba ke fumana gore ya
a re bone mo tšheleteng ya lobola mo o file moraga go
nna ene tswa go nna ne le 10,000. Yes.
And koreking ya lona ge go na le ka nkgwa ile a tsebisa ka teng gore ke le sogana le mosetsana lena malapa a mabedi le tsekena kae
ha ona mo ileng a nkena teng ha isale ke qetela tsatsi leo ka announcement go fitlhela se ke utlwa go moga ka sa dula le mosadi
o a leng go batla ka 40,000 ke ma
bontate ba babedi ba neng ba gongwe
bona ba boletse le ma a ke re lena ha nitse
nna ha ke tsebe
ba santse ba tlile mo wena ba re no lena ba lapa le la ha le sogana ba lapa le la ga mosetsana ba batla 40 or 10 whatever.
Nna hona ntho e bueng le nna ntate ka be ke bua maka ba di qetile le ngwana ba le toropong go ngwana ba kena convince ke financial advisor tšhelete be ntshue a fuwe 30,000 ka godimo go tšhelete etse 40,000
ba kgethilwe ke mang
ba kgethiwe ke prophet
lena malapa ha le itse
nix nna le batho ba heso ona jwale e bang ba shebile le video ba qala ho utlwa spirit bona ha e sa le spirit jang ke sa tsebe ke se qala jwang ke fitla ha malome ke se qala jwang ke fitla ha ngwane ke se qala jwang ke fitla kae
yena fe la pane la ba mosatsana ba e fumane 40,000
ha ke re ke hona ke utlwang ke makala ka sheno ha ditaba di itswa go 20,000 ile iswa kerekeng ile ya altar empa le ka mane hape ho ngwana ka o batla altar e nngwe ngwana ba ntsha tšhelete e nngwe hape
ha ke re he tšhelete e ya go lapeng le la mosatsana go na le buka mo lengwalante ba ngwalante
e teng ke na le bona bopaki ke le ka re moga a nsendela
bjale ba ngwadile bokae mo teng
go nongotse gore lobola as negotiation ke 50,000 mare he moga o tshwere 40,000 10,000 e tla lateng 10,000 ya teng ha moga sa njwetsa o sa re prophet o itse ke tswele 10,000 di teng la nna ba taba engwe ntse mpha suspicious
bjale ka ra gore le buka e re lobola ke 50,000 okay no go ntshitswe
40,000
o setse 10,000 e ngwadile mo bukeng
e ngotse
mo bukeng bjale ela ya 20,000 ya go ya go moruti e tswile kae
go sho go itswile go eo ene setse ya ke setse le bana ke bana batho bone ba tshwere tšhelete ke re motswadi a sa ba bo makoti
to bona ba tsere ba fa mo
go bane ha qeta 20,000 eo e setseng ho bona ke a o thoba rekele ditulo tsa kereke
a ka re batla gore re mmotsa re tsebe gore nnete ya teng e kae mona ka gore a e tseya pele fitlha o e fitlhisitse tšhelete batho ba la ba file lapa
ba
leo
isile lapeng leo
bjale ba lapa ba ntsha 20
ba isa reporto gore ke sebeditse hantle
Okay. No. Thank you so much. Commissioners, wherever you are, I know you have had the linguistic embargo, but it's part of the training that if you're a South African, you must know at least one indigenous languages. Sorry?
Commission must sing.
Okay, Linda, me ke kwa habiti deputy.
Thank you, Chairperson.